All right, and it says that we are live. Well, hello, my name is Dan, and this is Matt Beall. Would you like to introduce yourself, Matt? I'm sure a lot of these people already know you, but
Yeah, sure, man. Yeah, I'm Matt, and I've got a little podcast called Limitless. I'm a CEO out of Florida. We've got a family retail business that we've had in our family for 110 years now. It'll be 110 years in April. So that's kind of my main job, and then got into this podcasting thing just for fun, just because want to try to explore some topics that I don't get to really talk about all the time, but that I'm super interested in. So it's a good outlet for me.
yeah, your podcast has really taken off. I was there just like 3 months ago, and it was around 7,000 subscribers, and you just broke 15, didn't you?
Yeah, 15 a couple days ago, should be 16 tomorrow. Yeah, man, it just keeps going.
Nice,
Yeah, yeah,
beautiful,
yep.
good growth. I had a feeling you were going to do well. You're a good interviewer and had a wide variety of topics and stuff that you're well versed in. Um, Hello, everyone. Thanks to the chat. I got to say hi to everybody real quick. But yeah, so if you don't mind me asking, what exactly kind of got you started? Not necessarily the podcast, but just like looking at like alternate history, or was it like the moon stuff, the face on Mars back in the '90s? I know that was like one of the first kind of things that kind of made me take a second look at the powers that be and go, hey, why are you guys playing all shady with this shit?
Yeah. For me, it goes. I'm going to bore people with this right off the bat, but it goes way back to childhood, and it's like I was born in 1978, and so when I was about, I guess I was maybe 7 years old, 8 years old, and I found out that Santa Claus wasn't real. And so I'm like, well, what the, like, I was devastated, absolutely devastated. And my first question was, because somebody at school told me, some kid at school, and then I went home to my mom, and I'm like, is this really real? Santa's not real? You've been telling me that this dude's real for like, my entire life. And she's like, yeah, he's not real. And I'm like, what about the Easter Bunny? And so from there, it was like, well, what is real? Like, what is reality? What is this place that we're living in? If these people that I'm trusting with my survival have been telling me this bullshit for my entire life, like what is actually the truth and the reality of the situation? And I got to be 10 or 11 years old, and Bob Lazar came out, and he's talking about how, he worked at this place, Area 51, and he worked on a UFO and all this stuff. I'm like, well, is that real? It seems more real than the Easter Bunny. So I think just at a young age, I've had this interest in exploring reality and exploring the nature of things around us, and try to find some truth and some answers in the world out there. And so that's something that I've always had a deep interest in. And so for me, it's like there's beliefs. And I learned that from a very young age, growing up in a Catholic family. And for me, beliefs had always been the truth. And people talked about their beliefs as if they were the truth. And my mom was big into politics as well. And so she was always, this is right. This is, this. And as I get older, it's like, well, there's two sides to this coin. There's people who have valid perspectives on both sides. And I guess I kind of, as I got older, I realized a lot of times people are mistaking beliefs for truths. And so for me, it's like, how do you sort that stuff out, and actually, try to learn a little bit about the world that we're living in, hopefully for the betterment of our species, for the betterment of humanity. So.
Well, that's actually pretty smart. I find that the opposite of boring. I'm into psychology a lot, and that's really where your angle was there. Is that you're and that it's a funny thing when you try to talk to people that have a belief that they've pinned as a truth. It can be very difficult to really have a reasonable conversation with somebody who's otherwise quite reasonable.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that's when you find yourself not trusting the powers that be, mom and dad telling you about Santa Claus, or the government telling you about the face on Mars or whatever, all of a sudden it becomes where you almost kind of have to do, if you give a shit, you kind of have to do that research on your own to some degree. And you'll never be able to fact check it all. You have to learn how many different sciences to do it all, but it gets to a point where you have to find a line. I think in most people's heads that are questioning like that, you have to find a line where you're willing to accept, because we all have to have faith at some point, which is frustrating, but it's something that the quicker you acknowledge it, in my opinion, the better you are off, because we're all tainted in that way. Even, we'd like to think otherwise, but that's something that spreads to every human.
Yep. Yeah, for sure. Yep.
So your business, you've 110 years, man. Holy crap. That was one thing that impressed me a lot about you when we talked, was the way that you ran that business, the way your families ran that business. Do you mind talking about that for a bit?
No, not at all. Yeah, it was I'm fourth generation, so it was my great grandfather, and it's a straight linear. It was like it was my dad before me, and then his father was my grandfather, and then his dad started it when he was 22 years old. He moved down here from Georgia. I guess there was like a boll weevil epidemic in Georgia, and so he moved down and lost his farm and started this retail business, and so he lost the business to the Great Depression in the late 20s, and then it's just been, we've had ups and downs over the last 110 years, obviously, but it's just been a family kind of a legacy dynasty thing for that period of time, and I guess growing up, it's always been kind of what I wanted to do. Ever since I knew what it was, I'm like, okay, yep, that's cool. I'm going to do that one day, and I always felt like. I felt like if my dad could do it, that I could do it. I always felt like he was like a super logical kind of like, I felt like he made more sense to me than anybody else in my family, or, you know, in my general surroundings. Like he was always kind of like, but just very logical and level headed, and made good decisions, and he's just he's an impressive dude, and he's late stages Alzheimer's right now. So, not mobile, not talking, but he's been my inspiration for I think I can actually do this. As funny, as a kid, you're growing up, and it's like, I'm 10 years old, 12 years old. What do you want to do when you grow up? Oh, I want to work at Bell's. First thing they say is, well, it's a 85-year-old company. You better not screw it up. You better not be the one to crash it or whatever. So, I had to go through some of that stuff, and kind of the fear and the just anxiety about that. But I'm way past that, worked through all of that, and just kind of enjoying life and enjoying the ride, and enjoying just operating a company with a great group of people. I don't view it as me operating the company, me running the company. I view it as a complete team effort, and it's really a bottoms up approach. I mean, I'm looking for guidance from the people that are on the front lines, that are closest to the issues. I'm not telling them what to do. I want them to tell me what to do, to tell the next level up what to do. And that's kind of how we make decisions in our company, is from that standpoint. And it's been healthy, and it's worked for a long period of time. And I'm just grateful to be able to, I mean, we've got 650 stores, we've got 15,000 employees, we're 23 states. We're going to be going in 20, we're going to be up to 26 in the next couple of years. So we're opening stores, and in a time period where retail is really, really challenging out there, and people are going out of business, and people are struggling. We've got two chains. We've got one which is kind of like what you might call an off-price chain, kind of like TJ Maxx or Ross or Burlington. That's called Bell's. And then we have what's called Bell's Florida, and Bell's Florida is more of a department store business, and it's only in Florida. Department store business is challenging. It's really, really challenging. So, I kind of separate it, but that's about maybe 25% of the total at this point is the department store business, and it's getting smaller. But the off-price business is growing and continues to open stores. So it's a balance. Retail is just kind of it's constant. It's a constant challenge. There's constantly something new every day, some new fire, some new strategy, some new technology, some new competitor. Some new brand. Somebody's going out of business. There's a supply chain issue. There's a strike at the port. There's it's whatever, but it's fun, man. It keeps you busy, and keeps you challenged.
Yeah, that's I remember talking to you a little bit about it, and then you were discussing how you would had able to like ride hide through things like COVID and stuff, and how other businesses were having a real rough run of it. And yeah, retail is getting hammered right now. I mean, it's especially after COVID. I don't think I need to tell anybody that anybody who lives in any sort of urban environment watched mom and pop places fold left and right the last few years. So hearing that you're growing throughout all that stuff, I mean, there's a lot to be said about that. But one of the things is you're not publicly traded, so that's probably like, not probably, that's extremely beneficial if you're trying to like guide the ship. You don't have to have the too many people in there, too many chefs and all that crap. You're just one guy.
Right. Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's hugely beneficial. Yeah, that you don't have to just do whatever Wall Street tells you to do. You can actually make decisions for the long term of the business, whereas a lot of these public guys are making decisions for the next quarter, and that's tough. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, I remember a quote. I can't remember who I could attribute it to, but I remember a quote from a CEO a long time ago, and he was on like Nightline or 2020 or one of those shows that you used to see on PBS, and he was discussing outsourcing of labor to other countries, and he was talking about how the laws tie his hands. He's like, I'll give you an example. As an American, I think that have a problem with outsourcing labor to other countries, and it's going to destroy our manufacturing sector and all that stuff. And then he says, however, as the CEO of whatever company, I have to recommend that we move our manufacturing to Mexico and to China. So it's like he can't follow his scruples. He's beholden to his shareholders to make them as much money as he possibly can. So
Right.
yeah, like Chick-fil-A couldn't be closed on Sunday if they were publicly traded. They would have sold that shut the first day. That would be the first thing that went away.
No doubt. No doubt. Yep. Very true.
So that's pretty interesting that you've been able to pull that off. I still got a gift card that I need to cash in on, as a matter of fact, from when I was up there.
Yeah. We got a website.
Oh yes, you do. I was looking at shoes with my kid on there. He was eyeballing a few pairs, but we never did pull the trigger.
Cool.
Did you have a legacy YouTube channel? Is that correct?
Yeah, I've got a second channel. It's called Legacy, Matt Beall Legacy, and it's just for our business. I mean, anybody can watch it. Obviously, it's public. It's out there on YouTube. But yeah, I put stuff out there. I interview a lot of people in and around the business, like employees. I've recorded myself a couple of times when I'm giving talks or speeches or whatever. One of the things that I talked about on there has been our company values. So I've covered that topic, I guess, on 2 episodes, and those have been really helpful and popular, and it's been huge for recruiting, like for hiring. It's one of the impacts. I didn't really see that coming. What I knew would be a benefit of having a company YouTube channel / podcast was really like from an employee standpoint and current employees to understand what's happening around the business and to like be engaged and in touch with the general operations and what's happening in the company. But from a recruiting standpoint, I mean, people are watching it and deciding whether or not they want to come work for us. And it's like, hell yeah, I want to jump on board. It's like they like what they hear as it relates to kind of the culture and the values and kind of how we kind of handle our business. So yeah, that's been cool. That's been fun. We just dropped one yesterday about that was like our final awards ceremony for this year, where we give out the annual awards. I think we gave out like 100 awards. I just put the last 6 of them on there and dropped it. I give the closing award, and our president gives a couple before me. But you're able to do stuff like that when you have a channel. It just opens up possibilities to communicate with people and to stay in touch with people if they're interested in the content. So it's been fun.
Awesome. Well, I'll make sure and put a link to that when after we're done. Put a link to that down below so people can find it. Especially if you're locals, man, you might want to go get a job. But doing some recruiting here. But yeah, that's pretty crazy. And being in that position, though, it's allowed you to have a degree of freedom where you were able to, like, most of us, if we get into these vases, we get to look at them on YouTube, but you're like, I'll put that bastard in my closet. So you've got a handful of them. And I'll to be honest, I told you then, but in more or less in private, I'm sure I thanked you in the podcast, but that was like my first real cool thing that I got to do as connected to my YouTube career or whatever. Flying down to Florida was cool. Talking to Graham Hancock and stuff, all that was cool. But like putting the vases in my hand for the first time, it's like, holy shit, man! I've seen artifacts through glass at museums and picked up arrowheads, but everybody's talking about these, and here I am holding so many of them that if I started dropping them, I would be in debt for the rest of my life. So no, it's very, very cool. So
we would just have fragments to scan under the electron microscope. We would be good.
But the one that was still the most impressive to me out of all of them, maybe the most impressive, but the coolest to me was the one with the multiple little handles that were blanked out that hadn't been finished yet.
Yeah.
That was just where it shows part of the manufacturing process not yet finished. I thought that was just cool as shit. Excuse me.
I got you, man. I got you. I brought 10 or 12 of them out just in case you wanted to talk about them. So yeah, Ryan,
yeah, absolutely.
Want to go on one of them? Yeah, that guy.
That is the one right there. Like the way
Yeah,
that it's got those little spot for those handles all the way around. That is so cool.
yeah.
And yeah, it balanced really well and stuff too. Just a little guy.
Balance is perfect. Yeah, it's really well. Yeah, the top of it, I mean, is very very much flat. You know, it's yeah, it's cool. It's like they decided not to cut out all of the space between the two handles, and what they actually did instead was they put the two holes on one side of it, which is very unique and very different. You don't see that anywhere. This over back there is just damage. That's just two holes from damage over time. But yeah, that's pretty cool how they did that with the two holes. So I guess it doesn't matter if the holes are on opposite sides as long as you have two holes. I don't know, but this one also spins really well. This is just a very high friction surface, but yeah, this one's cool, man.
Yeah, that one is really cool. It's what I guess what was so cool about it is that I expected to see, the vase, right? I expected to see a lot of the pots and stuff, but that one was just like, it was so unexpected, and then so like, oh, this has got a little bit of the mystery right there too. That was pretty neat.
Yep, yep. Yeah, each of them has a different story and a different look and feel, and you can learn something from every one of them. I mean, they've all got like these little, like that. I did a video on the glowing one. That, well, like it's you can see the inside of it where part of the core, the tube drill didn't snap off at the very bottom, and I guess the hole was too small to go back in. But you can kind of learn about how they were manufactured, and just by kind of comparing those little differences that each of them have. And what you kind of realize is that there wasn't like, they're just all very unique. Like there's not like there's not that you can say, okay, they did this and then they did this and then they did this and this is I mean, they're clearly all a separate piece of art that's very special, very unique.
Yeah, that was one thing I definitely took away from it, was the tooling marks on the inside when you would reach up like under the lip where it's going to be rough to tool, right? And
Mhm.
some of them were so smooth up there, I was shocked, and other ones you just line after line after line where you could feel the remnants of the drill path or whatever cut that mark.
Yep.
So it was really, it is like you say, there is no two of them are alike. Well, those, a lot of them do look similar.
Mhm.
But no two of them, when you start really, really handling them, they are definitely all unique. Definitely a lot of time went into these, I would say.
No doubt.
But
Yeah. Yeah, it's
yeah,
cool, man. I haven't collected anything since baseball cards when I was like 12. So this is, been saving up for a while. So it's a fun little hobby.
that's quite a step up from baseball cards.
I thought I was going to be retired by now with the baseball card phenomenon. When I was probably 9 or 10 years old, the Ken Griffey Jr., I figured I'd be able to retire, but yeah, not so much, man. I think it's still worth today what it was back in 1988.
Well, the internet shook it up. The same thing that kind of hits retail nowadays hit the collecting community in the 90s with eBay. Regional rarity was dead. So like if you I mean, I used to flip comic books when I was 15 years old, and I would order them on from American Comics on the comic books. I would order them and get a small discount, and then wait 4 weeks, and then take them to a comic book store when there was none left in town, and get like $10 an issue for the right ones, Punisher versus Wolverine and crap like that. But that just died in the 90s, because then you could just go online, and all of a sudden all these mags, all it takes is one guy putting it up for a penny auction, and all the rest of them are toast. And things like baseball cards and comic books from our generation, our parents' generation, was different. They didn't save them. They read them, they put them in the spokes of, and so they got destroyed. Our generation, we did that with video games. That's why it's a video game from our generation, still sealed, can command a premium. But now all these guys are doing the same thing. They're buying and keeping them sealed, putting them on shelves, and the exact same thing's going to happen. That 3DS with the Zelda logo on it, they paid $300 for, is going to be worth $300 in 2052. That's
Yeah.
just there's so many of them sealed in mint. But the stuff that doesn't get saved, the iPod number one, that's my prediction, as far as a stupid thing that in 10-20 years is going to be worth a few bucks. iPhone, those things that nobody saved, and that everybody's going to have a little memory of.
Yep, makes sense.
But none of that's nearly as cool as those vases. I mean, you got the cool vase over there on the table, the one that everybody talks about.
The which one? They're all
Oh,
cool.
well, no, sorry, the one that you've got all the 3D scans of, the vase, the one the translucent guy, the one that
Oh yeah. Uh-huh.
here, I think I figured out. I'm still kind of new to this. Let me think. I think I got this figured. Yeah, we can put you on the screen. So if you switch to the vase cam,
Okay.
man, it's pretty amazing that nice setup that you've got there with the different things set up. Look at that, bam, that thing
Right.
is gorgeous.
Yeah, this one's pretty sick. Yeah. And it doesn't look smooth on the camera just because you can see all the little crystal inclusions in it, but it's like like a glass smooth finish. Yeah.
It is. And the inside on the center part of that was just so smooth too. On the inside, I was just blown away. It was very, very smooth.
Yeah, you can see the light coming through the side right there. That's not damaged. That's like on the inside there. That's that thin part. Yeah, it does have, and I don't think the light is going to be enough to see on the inside, but yeah, it does have those scratch marks at the top of it.
Mm-hmm.
They kind of go around in a circle. Yeah, we can't see that, but it goes around in the circle on the top of it, and it's kind of a mystery what that is all about. Like, was it were they measuring volume on the inside, or did the tool slip on the inside, or what? I think if you ask Flint, he'll say, well, those are there because it was handmade. Clearly, it's just it's handmade. But I think it's I think it's likely either a mistake of the tool and the tool slipped, or thank you, or it's they were just measuring. They were measuring volume in it.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
A couple of questions in the chat. One is, how thin is that? Like, how thin was that? This thinnest
Yeah,
part?
so it's if you go back, Ryan, and thank you for the flashlight. It's 4 millimeters on most parts of it, and
Damn.
it's 2 millimeters on the inside on that band that you see going around there. So basically, you're at 4 millimeters along this part right here, the lip, all the way down to the base of it, down to about there, and then you're 444, and then it just goes off to 2 right around here, and that's
Damn.
that's really where you see the light kind of coming through it. So
Yeah, that's impressive.
yeah, it's pretty cool.
And the inside follows the contour of the outside. I would say yes. That was, yeah.
100%.
It doesn't 100%. Yeah.
Yeah, and you can see. Oh, there you go. Yeah, this is tough, man. Oh, there you go. Yeah. So yeah, you can see very, very smooth on the inside. I mean, if you look at the wall thickness report on this one, it's very, very smooth. Very, very. It's very synonymous. The wall all the way up to that point in the middle where it shines through. But then those are the scratch marks.
Yeah, I guess so you can see them now. Yeah.
Yeah. There you go. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember noticing those by hand. Like I said, when you get up under the lip where you read that, yeah, the tool slipped or something happened there because everything else is so perfect, and then that's like just rough.
Right. Yeah, and it is a little bit. Yeah, they kind of. It's not like it's not completely flat. There is some overlapping of the lines, so it's not as if it's like they're horizontal lines, right. Next to each other. It's more. It's almost as if the tool was going or something. So I don't know, but it's amazing that it didn't break unless they cored the inside of it first. But then there's evidence on other ones where it's like, okay, the outside was probably done first. So it's again, I don't know that there's like this is how they did it kind of a thing.
Yeah, it's tough to say. There might be, you would assume, I mean, just like guessing based on history, you would assume that like certain families would pass it down, and then they would hide their secrets from other families that were doing the same kind of thing and things. Like, just if you base it off like metalworking in the early days and stuff like that, you'd see a lot of that kind of stuff. So yeah. It's possible, but it's definitely, these are really something that's interesting. I mean, there's all the information like on that vase, like all the measurements and stuff. There's very few artifacts that have been really like examined to the degree that these have been examined as far as the metrology side of things goes. And that is no matter what people want to say about how much bullshit woo is involved in the ideas behind it, this is really interesting stuff because it does, like, I mean, that's tiny. 2 millimeters to 4 millimeters. That's nothing, right? There's like no material there, basically.
Right. Yeah, and on any horizontal plane, it's the same wall thickness regardless of which side of the thing you're on. You know, it's like it's incredible. But yeah, speaking of the metrology specifically on this one, and I got to credit Ralph Ellis for finding this, but on this one, on the other red granite spinner, the original spinner vase, and on Adam's OG vase, you've got actually the an ancient system of metrology, an ancient Egyptian system of metrology. And so the royal cubit and the subsets of the royal cubit, the royal finger, are embedded into the metrology of those three vases for sure, and potentially a lot of other ones. But I can talk about the other ones too, but on those you're talking about very it's you've got a height of I'm gonna forget what the numbers are, but the height, the width, the neck, and the mouth opening and the lip all measure out to like whole royal finger measurements, and a royal finger is 18.7 millimeters according to I guess it was Isaac Newton was kind of the first person to figure this out, and they measured the king's chamber, and the king's chamber is 10 by 20 cubits. Well, there's but a subunit of the cubit, there's 28 fingers in a cubit, and those are 18.7 millimeters. Cubits 52.4 centimeters, and these artifacts measure out. Those three specifically measure out to in whole and fractional royal fingers, and so it's like they're all measuring out either into whole or into thirds, like 1/3 or 1/2 or 2/3. That's where they all line up, and it's like within a ridiculous tolerance, like 1/100th of an inch, 2/100ths of an inch away from that specific measurement that they were trying to hit during the manufacturing process. And this is supposed to be like before writing almost, you know, I mean, it's like, and so how are they measuring down to a fraction of a millimeter at that time? And if they're in like in modern days, these are supposed to have come before that system of measurement was even invented or created. It was supposed to have been invented at the time of the construction of the I think the step pyramid, but these go back into pre-dynastic times, you know? And so it's like, well, maybe they were made right at the same time that the step pyramid was made, but if they weren't, then this system of measurement actually goes back farther. And so these are the types of things that I think we're learning by examining these artifacts.
Yeah, that's I can't argue with that one bit. I mean, the whole idea of finding the metrology there further back in history, it's that every time that it seems like I look into one of the claims from the vase stuff, as long as it anytime that I find a different explanation from what the vase scan team would necessarily like to have the explanation be, basically it's lower tech solution, it always just pushes the dates thousands of years back. Like it's just this constant thing of, even if it's so weird to me because the academics just reject this stuff on its face because of where it's coming from, and it's like it doesn't matter what the person believes if they bring you on as data. What's the data imply? And at the like that the metrology thing, well, like, you know, a lot of people might not think about it, but the big deal there is a standardized system of measurement. It's not so hard. It's not so hard for me to pick up a stick and then make something that's just as long as that stick. If you know, if that's what my intention is, I can measure to that stick. But to have my neighbor measure to that stick, that's when things get tricky. And so when you have this system that's existing long before it should exist, once again, it's like very interesting stuff.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, a lot of mysteries. Yeah, I feel like the vase scan team is like everybody, honestly. Like, you know, I mean, I kind of started off with Adam Young and Alex Dunn, and obviously those two guys, I've got a tremendous amount of respect for them. They were like the pioneers, and they really carried the torch. And then Ben has been carrying the torch, obviously, for a long period of time, you know, and just doing amazing work. And he's the one who got me into this. You know, I feel like there's a lot of individuals that are currently working on it, but they're all over the world, and we're kind of all doing our own thing at this point. But like even the people on my channel that are making comments, like Austin Cole Carlisle, and God, I mean, I could name like 10 people that have made comments that are like, wow, that's mind blowing. And yeah, we ought to test that. And like a lot of the stuff with like resonance or, frequency or, Ralph Ellis, like he's like, it's really anybody that has an interest in this thing is contributing to our knowledge and our understanding of them. And in turn, our ancient history. And it's just really cool that we can all kind of, let's put the data out there as much as we can and talk about it, and like we can figure out some cool shit together. So it's fun to be a part of.
Yeah, definitely awesome. I just watching from the outside and even get to weigh in every now and again is pretty cool. But just like the amount of data that's coming out of it is it's pretty impressive, and obviously it's going to keep coming. And there'll be people that we get the guys that call them all just sweatshop fakes. But that's one thing that's kind of funny is when you look at from a guy who's done the collecting stuff, and I'm not nowhere near on the level as you, but I've dealt to some collectors that had deep pockets over the years, and when it comes to provenance, there's certain things that there's certain times that the market is almost happy when the provenance isn't perfect because it actually makes the fucking thing available. The Clovis point that I talked about, the Ruts Clovis is the largest Clovis point that's ever been found. And it was found, but it was confirmed. It's made in a manner that no other Clovis point had been made when it was found. When another cache was found that was made in the same manner, this was now no longer considered potentially a forgery, and it was the best one you could find. A lot of these artifacts, they have paperwork that goes back generations. It's just the paperwork doesn't go back to the day that it was taken from Egypt, and that might have something to do with the fact that for the time of Napoleon until about the early 1900s, you just go over there and grab shit left and right and walk on. Even now, if you've got deep pockets, I would not be surprised if ayahuasca would help you walk away with a couple of things, allegedly.
Yeah, no, it makes total sense. Yeah, and think about like the 20 years before Jean-Philippe Loyer came and excavated the step pyramid and found up to 40,000 of these underneath the step pyramid. And of course, there's debate. How many were broken, how many were whole, how many were hardstone, how many were alabaster, blah blah blah. Who cares? The point is, he got in there. And on year one, like very early on, when he began to excavate that, he found all of those. So what was the team prior to him doing for the last 20 years prior? I mean, did they just not see him? Did they just walk right past him? I mean, if you're a little bit even questioning or conspiratorial, you might think, hey, maybe they were doing that. Maybe they were selling them out of there, for years and years. The good ones, the hard stone ones. It's just we don't know. I think we should be open to the possibility that these have been excavated from a lot of graves and a lot of tombs, and potentially even the step pyramid for a lot longer than we know about. So yeah, I mean, you can tell when something's got age, man. I mean, you can tell when something's 5,000 years old versus 1997. Like, it just doesn't look the same. It's just it's just a rock from 5,000 years ago is it's got wear to it, it's got age to it, and there's ways to look at these things, I think, and tell with a reasonable amount of certainty that these are genuine and authentic and old. Not always. I think it's not all, and of course I'm open to being, to that not being the reality. I'm a percentage guy. I'm not a this is right, that's wrong kind of a thing. I think there's a chance that all of the precision ones are modern replicas. I'm totally fine with that. If we can somehow prove that and show that there's this ring of people that have created these things in the past, in the 20th century or whatever it is, that we can expose that, then that'll be worthwhile in collecting this, and so that people don't continuously just buy art off the antiquities market and think that they're buying something genuine when it's not. I'd be totally fine if that were the outcome. It just doesn't appear that that's the case based on everything that we know about these objects. I mean, are there one or two? For sure. And I pointed out one on Danny Jones that I think is probably much more modern. It's got no damage. It's perfectly polished inside, outside. It's well balanced. It's like, it's it just looks different. It feels different. It has a different weight to it. You can just you hold it in your hand, and it's just it's a question mark. And so that's the thing about buying these off of either estate sales or auctions or whatever. You don't really know until it shows up. But once it does show up, you get a really good feel of is this thing genuine or not. And I've returned a couple. I've returned maybe 3 or so of them, and I've kept one just to show it as an example of this is what I think they would look like if we made them today. And it's like what a modern urn would look like. It's what it's what little granite bowls or things would look like if we were to produce them today. And I think so it seems somewhat it seems to be at least somewhat obvious when things are modern versus when things are 5,000 years old, if you're able to look at them, touch them, feel them, examine them. So
Yeah, I remember you showing me the one that was that you're pretty sure is a modern repro, and it did have it was considerably newer looking, and not just that, the tooling and stuff was different. It did feel, it seemed more modern, just
right,
purely.
yeah, yeah.
Um,
No
I think
damage.
one of the things that's also, I think, important to weigh in on about or to consider, I should say, when you're looking at the possibility of them being reproductions or fakes or whatnot, is the value on these vases was really kind of minuscule until relatively recently. I mean, they were the kind of things that weren't heavily sought after, and somebody that was making fakes would have been far better off making a statue or something to that effect that would have got a lot more money and been a lot smaller and required a lot less overall effort, if they had a decent sculptor at hand. These are and they have been manufacturing fakes in Egypt for centuries, since Napoleon's days. The locals figured out quick, if you make a fake and sell it as real, you get some bucks. But those things tend to be, they tend to be the good stuff. They don't tend to be the things, and these vases until recently were not considered the good stuff as far as Egyptian antiquities went. They were just kind of, if you're a rich person and you were going to put a vase on your shelf, maybe you'd have this one because it had some status. But nowadays, that's a whole different ball of wax. So it seems to me that these are not high on the list of things to be faked. But that's speculative.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. I mean, there's a lot of arguments against them being fake. I mean, most of them have come from families that have had estate sales that have died, and the families got them in the 50s, 60s, 70s, and a lot of, in most of the cases, in a lot of the cases. And then you've got some extremely reputable, although I know people are going to try to attack anybody that they can attack for whatever they can attack them for. But you've got companies like Bearcat. I mean, he's the largest private owner of antiquities in the world. He's got a 5th generation family business that goes back over 100 years, and like to stake his reputation. I mean, he's probably a billionaire. I mean, he certainly has several $1 billion worth of antiquities in his possession. And so why is he gonna, for a couple $1,000, he's gonna, or whatever, he's gonna try, risk his whole company's reputation. He knows what I'm doing. Like he encouraged me to make videos on it, so I mean, he doesn't care if I put the certificate out there with his name on it. Like, he's very confident that that's genuine, authentic. He knows where he got it from. He knows it came from 1968, 1967, depending on the artifact. So yeah, it would have to, I feel good about it and confident about it, but I hope that we can someday find out by examining them with whether it's, SEMs or whatever it is. I hope that we can continue to get more answers and on this, quest for the truth about what were our ancient ancestors really capable of. Like, that's ultimately, I think, what everybody wants to know. And these provide a clue for that. I think everybody looks at the pyramids and they scratch their heads really? The story is just on a lot of stuff just doesn't add up. And I think now we can examine a huge piece of history that were, probably created by the same people and learn, what were these people? What were our ancestors really capable of? Because I think it's a lot more than we give them credit for.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with you there. That's definitely one takeaway that I get. Like I say, every time I look at it, it looks like they're just knocking things back thousands of years further than what was previously accepted from the data that they're pulling from the vases. And it just it's quite, I mean, it's quite evident. I think it's pretty evident to everybody in the Pyramidic community that something's up in Egypt. These guys were they're so far ahead of what we're told about them. A lot of the stuff just gets dismissed. Like we discussed when I was on your channel about the squaring and alignment of the pyramid and stuff, and how it's just disregarded by, it's not disregarded, but their explanations are mundane and aren't going, they're not compelling at all. They're certainly not going to answer the question. And it stands to reason that when you look at these smaller artifacts that, I'm not on board with the ancient high tech, but I think Ben is onto something there with a tale of two industries kind of thing, where there was a time where they knew more than they did later. They lost some of their technological ability at some point, and but by the time of the Greeks, they were like way back from where they were in their heyday. I think that's pretty clear.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I love Ben's work. Love Ben. He's a good friend, obviously. Love how he just pushes the envelope and continues to explore. I mean, we wouldn't know about the lathe potentially being 2,000 years older if it wasn't for Ben's work and the stuff he's done. I mean, the ancient computer thing, look, I like pushing the envelope, because if you keep pushing the envelope and you keep trying to see, what's the most extreme thing that can be one of the possibilities, regardless of how remote the odds are that it was whatever, ancient computers or electricity or plasma or whatever we might be talking about, or having a thought experiment about. Let's talk about it. Let's push the envelope a little bit. That's the only way that we can learn and that we can grow, and that we can. Otherwise, we're stuck with the same story of, this is fact. This is how it was. These are the tools in the record, and this is how they were made. And I think it's just a way to stand still and to not make progress in anything that you do. Is just to have that dogmatic belief system of, this is how it was done. I'm right, you're wrong, and there's nothing to see here. If there's nothing to see here, why are you making so many videos about it? Why don't you talk about something else where there is something to see? So it's. That's for the detractors. So, I think it's a fascinating topic, and I've gotten obviously hooked on it over the last couple of years as just something that, hey, this is a way that we can actually learn something. Like, there's not a lot of other really, really cool things like this out there right now that we can really learn from and examine and explore, that are happening, that you can just collect, and learn from. So I think they're freaking cool, man. They're really cool.
Yeah, I can't argue with that. Can't argue with that at all. Yeah, I get to meet Ben this December. I'm being somebody's gracing me with a trip to Egypt, so I get to go on Ben's tour this December. That's gonna be kind of cool.
That's cool.
Really cool, because the furthest I've been out of the country is Canada, so this will be nice.
Yep. So that's like a taxi ride.
Yeah, exactly. You just throw a rock up there.
Yeah, that's cool, man. That'll be great. Good for you.
Yeah,
I haven't been to Egypt
thanks.
either yet. I'm dying to go after starting this exploration. I'm going to Peru next month to see Cusco and those walls and stuff out there. And done a lot of travel, but Egypt is hopefully I'm going to get there next year. But super jealous, and Ben's the guy to go with, man. So that'll be fantastic.
Yeah, thanks. It's going to be a lot of fun. I'm going to enjoy that quite a bit. So
Yeah.
It'll be fun going on the set rail tour with, how do you put it? Going on a tour that's not like where I'm just kind of wandering off and checking out things on my own, where basically the time there is going to be maximized. I know so many people that go traveling around the world, and they're like, I don't want to get a tour guide or anything like that. And they show up there and they like piddle fuck around for 3 days and come back home. It's like, well, I saw 2 things and I ate at some restaurants. Their food there's kind of goes, what the fuck? So I'm happy to be on the rails my first time over there, and then if in the future maybe I'll go explore a little on my own. But the first time, just take me by the hand.
Yep. That's the way to do it for sure. Cool, man. That's great.
Peru, huh? That sounds pretty good. I'm hoping. I've been talking to my son about Easter Island for next summer if things keep going as they are. That's off the beaten path enough that I wouldn't worry about too much about things going south as far as like political problems and stuff. But I got a 15 or 16-year-old who's going to be in tow, so I got to worry about that end of it. But I definitely want to check out I would love to go to Cusco and Machu Picchu and a bunch of those places down there. There's just so many places I'd love to visit that never even on the radar until recently, as far as a realistic chance. But
Yeah, same here. Yep. Yeah, a lot of stuff to see in Cusco around there, Machu Picchu. Obviously Easter Island's a plane flight, but then Bolivia is right next to it as well, which is a train ride. I guess Bolivia is a little bit more challenging than Peru. Peru's easy. You got like Lima, Cusco, but Bolivia, I guess, can be with Tiwanaku and the Lake Titicaca and Pumapunka and all that stuff is like we're trying to work that into the trip right now. So it's kind of we're 50-50 on whether that's going to work or if it's just going to be kind of that Cusco Machu Picchu area. But yeah, man, we're pumped. Just me and my wife. I'm going to bring a GoPro and have some make some content, obviously, and share with people, and then me and Luke Caverns are going to probably record an episode and talk about it because he was just there last week too. So yeah, I'm pumped, man. It's going to be great.
Yeah, I was just talking to Luke not too long ago. That was cool that he was just down there. He's definitely a guy to talk about when it comes to that stuff. He's pretty knowledgeable of the region.
Yep, for sure.
So, have you done any more research on the Chilean Ridge? No, I haven't. But you were the guy that first mentioned that the whole little big old chain of islands that you showed there from Easter Island.
Did I get you into trouble with that?
I don't think so.
Okay. All right, you made a video, and I read some of the comments, and it was like, whatever. But
yeah, I'm starting to like the comments. I read comments when I'm doing a live stream. I can't respond to all of them, obviously, guys. I can't type right now. When I'm premiering a video, I respond to comments and stuff, and I respond to comments a little bit, but I almost quit reading them for the most part because it's so much of it's just people arguing back and forth, and I'm just like, okay, whatever. So
right,
yeah, I don't know what were they saying about that.
I don't even know. Yeah, I just kind of scrolled through and was like, okay, I'm going to come back to this and watch this video. But yeah, the Easter Island thing is I thought Ryan, can you pull up the iPad? Yeah, I just thought it was like if you just look at this from like Google Earth, it's freaking crazy. Like it looks like you've got this coming off of Peru. Basically, you've got this hockey stick kind of a path, and it's this. I don't know if these are. I think these are legitimate, like underwater now, chains of land. And you've got Easter Island, I guess, is right there. It's the only one that's still above water, but you could imagine if sea level was 400 feet lower during the ice age, and in addition to that, there's going to be a bulge at the equator due to the ice caps having weight on the north and south pole, that a lot of this island kind of structure would be above water. And then all of a sudden that kind of starts to make some sense as you follow it out here, and you're going in this direction. And it's like, okay, well, you could see people island hopping. I think Graham has mentioned this area as like, obviously all of this would have been above water, so I'm not saying this is Atlantis necessarily. I'm just saying, like, could this have been a place that, I mean, people have been here on the planet for at least 800,000 years? So we'll say 300,000 years just to make people. I think almost everybody can agree on that at this point, but maybe even closer to 1,000,000 years. So where were people living? What were people doing? Could this have been an area that people were inhabiting during the Ice Age? I mean, might be a lot safer out on an island for a period of time than it is in the jungle. So, could that explain some of the Easter Island stuff? I think Easter Island, you can take it off, Ryan, but Easter Island, it's the farthest east that you have Ginger, and it's the farthest west that you have. I think you told me this, Dan, right? I mean, what is it?
Like sweet potatoes.
Sweet potatoes. Thank you. Yeah. So, I mean, it feels like people were traveling from the east and the west to this place, and you've got an eclipse that happens there once a year. The eclipse just happened yesterday. I mean, sacred type of a environment that people would probably want to inhabit. So I thought it was a super interesting kind of just a thought experiment of could a civilization or a group of people have existed in this place on the planet at some point in the last freaking million years or whatever the hell, So
no, that's interesting. There's a lot of the I mean, it gets pretty out there with some of the Vedic text, but I remember, I don't know them all very well, but I remember a story of that neck of the woods supposed to have been inhabited by like winged monkey people or some shit like hundreds of thousands of years ago. Those Hindu texts go back so far that you're like Doctor Who timelines, but um, I remember them talking about like a whole group of people living in that area. Um, Supposed to be a long time ago, but it's just interesting that it is like you say, the survival on islands at a time would be a lot better than potentially than other areas, especially if the island was kind of like situated where it was protected from like if it had cliffs for a coast or anything like that. As long as you've got a place that you can gather fish, and the fish don't stop coming from the floods, then those are the places that would almost be like a little oasis from the whole mess for a second anyway, depending.
100%. Yeah, 100%. Yeah, and I mean, coconut trees are about the easiest thing to plant and propagate and spread along, islands. I mean, it's like, yeah, man, that's free water, that's free food. So, yeah, it definitely. I mean, look, I think that along the equator, probably all over the earth for the last, 800,000 years, at least 300,000 years, people have been finding places to live in temperate climates that have worked for that time period. And so, why not? Why wouldn't that have been somewhere that people, some ancient civilization or a group of people or whatever, we're inhabit or we're habitating. So
Yeah, well, the genetic studies coming out of there now, the DNA stuff from the human genome shows that there's Native American admixture in the Easter Island people, and that there is a degree of genetic drift of Native American admixture traveling west through the Polynesian islands and stuff. It's small, but they're finding it, and that's pretty impressive. Where it's like this is the kind of stuff like to go kind of circle back to us talking about the vases and how it's like disregarded. The data is disregarded. The observations are disregarded. Thor Heyerdahl made the same kind of observations with Cusco and Easter Island, saying that these were obviously one influenced the other, and it was mocked and laughed at. And well, now we've got a different situation where it's like, well, quite obviously these people were in contact with each other, so the one influencing the other. Now it makes sense. Now it makes more sense than both of these propping up like that on their own. So even though his position was outlandish and woo peddling, at the end of the day, it was right. And you could even go back to the guy, I forget his name, but the guy that first posited that the Vikings beat Columbus to the Americas. Talking about Eric the Red and all that. The guy that first talked about all that, his evidence was so threadbare. Like he had one or two things that made sense, and everything else was just bullshit. but he was right.
Yeah,
he was one of those. He was one of those guys that was just so messed up that it's like some of his lines of evidence were like, well, this rock wasn't made by Native Americans because you see it's been carved on. They couldn't figure out how to do that. Like, oh fuck! All right. Yeah, reading his stuff's harsh, but he was right. So it's sometimes
exploring that is how we push forward and learn what is the reality. Yeah,
that's right. The observations need to be an observation that has some sense behind it. Should be at least entertained on a reasonable level without knee jerking, and that's sadly not the case anymore.
Yep.
Not with everybody, but with the ones that the public face of the archaeologists and historians and stuff that engage with people like us. They are very much just baby with the bathwater.
Yeah. There's a couple of them. Yeah, I feel like it's 99.9% just a great group of people, and then you got a couple of them that are just insufferable. Just I mean, you can bring light into this world, or you can bring just like garbage into this world. And so it's like, what are you going to choose to do? And I feel like in that, and you've got people in every different community all over the world, in every different field, and every company, and every family, and every country. You've got people that are just, they just choose to be whatever, they choose to be, thieves could easily choose to do things legally. They could choose to do things, but they choose to steal because, it's easier. I feel like people can choose to bring peace into the world and positivity into the world, or they can choose to bring negativity into the world. And I feel like people that are making those bashing videos, those attacking videos on other people and other groups of people, they're labeling all of these people as a group of idiots. They're ancient alt history purveyors. It's like, just do you talk about something that's that's positive. Talk about something that's, bring something new and fresh into the world without beating on somebody else. Like, why do you got to be a bully about it? And then it gives people a bad name, and then it creates separation, and it creates like this divisiveness between people that are open-mindedly exploring possibilities and a whole other group of people. And in reality, that conflict doesn't exist. Like, it's not even real. It's just something that this one person or two people or three are perpetuating and carrying on by making these attacking videos. And it's just, again, you can create separation or you can bring people together, and it's like, what are you going to choose to do? And so not everybody's going to make that choice, but I think honestly, a lot of times, like, you just have to ignore it. Like, you just have to, the people that are most adamant that these vases are handmade and that there's nothing to see here and that it's easily explainable, none of them have ever seen one before. Certainly none of them have ever touched one or examined one before. And then, and then the question is, well, what's handmade? Well, they won't answer, what handmade means. Like, they won't, because they want to be able to change that later to say handmade includes a lathe, or handmade includes a whatever. So it's just like this whole, like, it's not even worth the time to talk to this very small group of individuals who are just putting out, hate speech, hate content, separation videos. It's and I get pulled into it because they're talking about me, they're talking about my work, but it's like, it's you just ultimately at the end of the day, you've got to kind of let them spread negativity if they want to and ignore it.
Yeah, I haven't done a very good job of ignoring it, but I can't. I know a lot of people do. I'm not cut from the same cloth. But,
yeah. Fair enough.
I know. I do want. Ideally, I wouldn't take any swings at anybody, but there is certain things that really gets to me. The biggest one is I just like, on such a fundamental level, I like science a lot, and finding out that scientists are bullshitting over the very reasons. Like, I've seen the guys on Twitter flat out, when I would call them out and say, like, man, you're like injecting your personal political biases into this, and it doesn't even have any room here. It's not even applicable. And the response is, what person can remove their biases from their work? It's like, well, hold the fucking phone, man. That's like the whole point of the scientific method. Now, I know I can't remove my biases from everything, but I can sure as fuck try. And right. So when you see the guys that are just like blatantly, I'm just gonna call it like I want it to be instead of like it is, and basically they're defiling the scientific method, but when they're wearing a lab coat when they do it, the average layperson doesn't see that. They just see a scientist saying that this is all fucked. Mm-hmm. And that's where it's like, man, like the guys like that, in all honesty, I don't know why, but my brain looks at it so bad. But God, they're traitors to humanity on like such a base level. It's like the entirety of, we give you money, we give you respect, we give you time. The least you can do is put your fucking ego in check, like you claim to do, like you've been trained to do. So that's where I end up just like, I bristle when see on some of that stuff. Yeah. But I do try to step back and make videos that are not just yelling about these guys, because otherwise I'll just turn into a drama channel.
Right. No, I mean, you call them out when they're like lying. You call them out when they're full of shit, which is fantastic, and you should. I try to think about the people like Luke Caverns. I try to think about the people like Ed Barnhart, and like the people that are actually out there that are like that are actually, they're not creating that separate, they're not derogatory, they're not belittling people, they're not calling people names or whatever, they're actually like, okay, well, let's, that's not what I think, but here's another possibility. But generally they're there's a lot of open-minded people out there that are that I try to focus on as otherwise it's just too, it gets, you can get caught up in that stuff pretty quick if you're not careful.
Yes, you're absolutely right. It is it, the internet wars are, these have been a thing for a while now, right? And people can
Yes.
get crazily angry about things and fly off the handle, and that disconnect makes it, the kind of interactions you had to watch WWF to see.
Yeah.
That's just fucking standard operating procedure now.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
like
no doubt.
people
Yeah.
just talk shit all day long.
Right. Yeah. And it's easy from behind a keyboard, and it's easier, or whatever. If you want to be a bully from behind a keyboard, that's easier. And I don't imagine these people would necessarily say that if it's just you and that person standing in a room together, but they're going to do it from behind a keyboard, or if they've got a posse of teachers standing behind them or something, like high school musical posse. But it's a shame that, that's the level of, that's the type of people that are making content for people out there to take in from a scientific standpoint. But there are great people making great content, and that's really what you got to focus on. Great scientists, great people from the academic community that are making great content, that are not that type of keyboard warrior type of people. So
Yeah,
that's I try to focus on that where possible.
yeah, I can't blame you.
Yeah.
It's also very much a like a guy like David Miano or Milo Rossi from Mini
Who's
Minute
David?
Man.
I'm not sure who David is.
David Miano,
Just kidding.
Okay, I was like, wait, what? Okay, damn, am I in the Twilight Zone?
Yeah.
No, like he's you kind of like get yourself pigeonholed. It's like you look through these people's content. Well, like Milo Rossi is a great example. At the end of his videos on Ancient Apocalypse, he talks about how he had an epiphany and he wants to move away from making debunking videos. He wants to move into making other content, wants to become more of an educator and less of an arguer, blah, blah, blah. And his next few videos do just that. They all performed about 10% as well as his debunking videos did. And then 6 months goes by and he comes back with a bunch of swings of debunking of low-hanging, idiot fruit, basically. As was the pyramid made from a crystal that was beamed down from the moon kind of bullshit. And he's just like shooting fish in a barrel. Because, well, he's like, he fucking makes money at this, man. And I'm not like trying to say it's the same thing with David Miano, where it's like once he hammered at the whole Gobekli Tepe Pillar 43 thing with Dr. Martin Sweatman and stuff, it's like his shtick was kind of set in stone. And you can deviate from that some, but just go look at his channel. And you'll see real quick that there's the odd history thing that will perform well, but those debunking videos, that's where he gets the clicks. And so you end up, I can see where somebody would end up stuck in that, where, it's one thing to make $500 or $1,000 a month on YouTube, but I mean, when your videos are getting millions of views like Mini Minute Man's, that's easily 10 grand a video. So, well, at that point, man, it's why would I make a video that only makes me $200 when I can make one that makes 10 grand? So
Yeah.
they end up recycling that, and the hate. There's but a debunking that doesn't have teeth is a boring debunking, and this is the internet, man. We're trying to entertain people as well. Led Zeppelin's one click away. Cat videos are one click away. So
yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, I mean, again, we all have that choice of what we want to bring into the world, and if a little bit more money is impacts your decision, then so be it. I think that says a lot right there. But I have nothing but compassion for those guys, and I think that they have been helpful, and that they do have some knowledge that they bring to this without necessarily having hands-on experience. We got some thunder here. I don't know if you can hear that.
Yeah, I did. I thought, well, is Ryan breathing in the microphone back there? What?
Yeah, that's some thunder, but yeah, they do add some stuff to the conversation, and can be helpful. Even those guys, even in their videos where they're with their violent speech, I think that they can add stuff to to it, and that we can learn from. I can learn from them as well. So I'm glad that there's interest, I guess, just in general from people all across the board, from just people out there on YouTube, people listening. There's a ton of interest on the ancient civilization, and then of course the ancient stone vase topic. And of course there is. Why wouldn't there be? It's freaking cool. There's not a lot of other stuff out there like that that's that interesting right now that's happening. So there's an election, but who gives a shit about politics, right?
I don't. Sadly, I have to every now and again remind my followers of that. It's like I have zero fucks given. I don't want to hear your opinions. I'm sorry.
Right.
No offense, but there's a channel again, one click away. Charlie Kirk's right over there. Freaking Vosh is right over there. See ya. Go yell at them. But anyway, what's funny about the way that it becomes so vitriolic and stuff is it's like everybody's figured it out. I'm sure you've known this for quite a while. Hate clicks, they pay the same as any other click, right? I mean, you write an article and it's twice as inflammatory. You get, if it pisses off one team and the other team rallies around, you get twice as much money. So there's a lot of incentive in creating division, and that's really it's kind of funny because people get foaming at the mouth, angry, and are ready to just destroy people over a lot of this stuff, which kind of blew my mind.
And I think it's worth pointing out about that creating division topic. I mean, it's worth pointing out. It's like, Ryan's laughing at something. I'm not sure.
Luke Caverns gave us a super chat and says, "Is this the guy that collects the stone pottery?"
Yeah, this is him. Yep, it's all pot.
It's all pot. No re.
Right.
Thank you, Luke.
Yeah. I forgot what I was saying, but it probably wasn't.
Sorry. No, we were talking about the division.
Yeah. I mean, it's just worth pointing out that we could be criticized, and I'm sure a video will be made that we're creating division right now. But I just want to point out that this is the activity of a select few, a very, very small group of people that are creating these hate videos. It's not the entire community. It's not academics in general. It's not Egyptologists. It's not archaeologists. These are wonderful people. These are great people. These are people that add a lot to the world and to our knowledge and to our understanding of what's happening. It's not, there's no ill will towards a group. That's racism. That's what that is. You hate a whole group of people, like the alt history community, for example, and that's kind of, I think if we can isolate it and just look at the division that's being created on an individual level, there's just a couple of people out there that are doing it, and I think it should be talked about. It should be, I'm not going to mention anybody by name, but I mean, we ought to just be aware that that's what's happening, and then hopefully, we can get to a place where those people just decide, hey, it's just easier to work together. Maybe I'll actually see this person in person one day, and it might feel a little strange after all the things. I called Matt Beall a liar on an X post. That's like, I got to go talk to him now. And so, it might be a little bit awkward. But if we can just learn to treat each other like human beings and talk to each other, without the divisive content, of they versus me and us versus them and this group versus that group, and just realize this is just a small number of people that are creating this divisiveness. It's not the whole. And when you look at the alt history community, I mean, if you want to even call it that, like Ben is not creating content like that. And you talk with Ben. I've gone out to dinner with him a couple of times. I've hung out with him. We've gone to a bar. We bowled. Like he's like I've spent a good amount of time with Ben. Not once has he been like, man, screw those people, or any of that stuff. Like he's totally focused on his own thing and doing his own thing, and just being his true authentic self and sharing knowledge and exploring possibilities. And like he's not hating anybody. He doesn't hate anybody, and you see it a little bit with a couple of people, I mean, but on that, in that group where they feel like they're being attacked. And so what they're doing is, it feels like they're defending themselves, and in reality, they're attacking back, and so it's just, you just want to give those people a hug too. But it's kind of sad that if we could just be open-minded and not get to that point where I'm right, they're wrong. and we can just be open-minded and explore possibilities together, then we start to come together and we start to reduce the amount of negativity and just kind of belittling and bashing that people are, a small number of people are putting out there. So that's my only, I think this is probably a dead horse at this point on this topic.
I think we have covered it, but I'd agree with you there. That's a good thing to segue to the Power of Now. There's a book that you sent me home with, and I haven't finished reading it, but I have been reading some of it, and that seems to be very very intertwined with the things you were just saying there, with this kind of like more about how you communicate with people and understanding, like empathy, and trying to look at it through their eyes as much as possible. Again, psychology is something I like a lot, so I'm enjoying that book, but I'm sadly really busy nowadays. But you said that book influenced you quite a bit. Is that right?
It did. Yeah. There have been, so with my company and the people at our senior executive team, if you want to call us that, there's about 13 people near the top of the company. And we've been going on this kind of cultural exploration of self-awareness and self-development, and just to try to be the best version of ourselves that we can be as leaders, and kind of reduce negativity within ourselves, so that we can create a culture and sustain a culture, or that's going to be super effective, where there's not trauma, there's not yelling and screaming, there's not just unconsciousness, that it's a very conscious work environment for people, so that they can, I just got out of my office with somebody who came into my office who's been working with us for 39 and a half years. And we just spent an hour together talking. He's on the senior team, and we just spent an hour together. He just told me he's going to retire, and he was like, there's some tears in there. And, it's an incredible culture. And we get people that want to spend their life with us, with their entire career with us. And I think a lot of that has to do with culture. And so, yeah, culture is very important to me, and working on culture is very important. And I think that we can create that by working on ourselves as opposed to working on other people. And so we've read a couple of books by Eckhart Tolle, The Power of Now being his first book, and then A New Earth being his second book. And then Michael Singer is another author, where Living Untethered, Untethered Soul, and The Surrender Experiment. Michael Singer is also a phenomenal author. And yeah, it's about an inward look of attempting to understand your true self, your authentic self. And we've created values based on the books that we've read. We've read, I guess, about 6 books now. Nonviolent Communication was the last one that we read. I just actually recommended that to David on an X comment. I think it would be it's a great book for a lot of people. I think it can really help a lot of people. It really helped me. And we created our values based on those books that we've read. And so our values are authenticity, acceptance, accountability, compassion, transparency, openness, and empowerment. So those are, and they all have kind of a separate, unique meaning. They all kind of don't exactly mean what you think they would mean right off the bat, just by thinking about the words. But and we don't have to do a deep dive into those right now. But yeah, I mean, if people are interested, there's a podcast on it that I created on the Matt Beall Legacy channel. And it's been life-changing for me to kind of have some daily practices that actually feel like they're really helping me to be a better person, and to be a better father, and a better just company employee, and just person to be around. And like just I've really reduced the amount of reactivity and negativity that I'm creating. And so over time, and we're all human, and so it's not bad when that happens, but just to be aware of it, and to understand what's happening within you, understand the emotions. Those are the types of things that I'm working really hard on, to be as effective as a CEO as possible, as effective as a leader as possible. And I'm encouraging my senior team to do the same. And it's working its way down within the company as well. And people are reading the books and changing. And it's just been this kind of cultural revolution that we've had over the last couple of years, as people have had these aha moments, these kind of awakenings of learning about their true self, about the kind of the nature of reality. And it's been a lot of fun. So there's huge awakenings. I mean, You Are Not Your Mind is, for me, one of the biggest awakenings that I've ever had. And I had it 3 years ago through one of these books. I think it was Untethered Soul. It was Untethered Soul by Michael Singer, and it's in the first 3 chapters of that book where he goes and he explains why scientifically you're not your mind, and to observe your mind is to be free of your mind, and to be dragged around by it for your entire life is essentially imprisonment. You don't have free will, and so if you have the power to recognize that you are not your mind when it takes you to past, to resentment, to sadness, to depression, or when it takes you to the future of anxiety or fear, or whatever it might be, you can be in the present moment. That's the power of now. You can be in the present moment. You can have control of that, and you don't have to let your mind kind of take you to past and future through negative and positive judgment if you don't want to. You have that choice. And so yeah, they're very empowering books, and they're very enlightening as it relates to just the nature of things. And so they were certainly very life-changing for me, The Power Now being one of them. Probably A New Earth being the primary one for me. A lot of stuff on ego and that, and reactivity, and just the nature of just humanity. And it tells us a lot about what's happening now with war, and with violence, and identification, and of with mental positions of being right, and making others wrong, and that's like that whole, it just leads to conflict and violence. And so yeah, I've kind of I used to be, I'd say, a highly competitive person with other people. And now I'm more of a highly competitive person with myself. I want to be the best version of myself that I can be. And it's not about other people. It's about an inward look and an inward journey of self-exploration. And so, yeah, it's been fun, man. It's been a really cool, and it's tied really into, it was a huge risk I wouldn't say it's a risk. I mean, we're a private company, but talking about these things, it's not something that you talk about in corporate America. Like, it's not like other companies aren't doing this. There's no companies out there that are talking about their feelings and their emotions, like it's not like a thing. Like, you're not supposed to feel emotions. That's what we're told. And now we're trying to identify, where do my emotions come from? Like, why are they happening? And so we're taking a deep dive, and it's been really refreshing for people. And it's led to a work environment that's just much more connected and trusting and at peace. And just, it's been a lot of fun. So.
Yeah, nice. Luke said that he recommended that book to John Hoops. He also said that his mom worked for you while she was going through college. Worked for the Bells.
Yeah,
That's
Luke
crazy.
mentioned that. Yeah, that's cool. That's cool. Yeah. Yeah.
Now we got a super chat here from Catman Cat Plan. Disobedience is the true foundation of liberty. A quote from Henry David Thoreau.
Facts.
Yeah, I can't argue with that. If you're not able to, as Carl Sagan said it, if you're not able to question those in authority, you are up for grabs.
Yep.
That's he was a real scientist. But yeah, that's I appreciate the like, you'd almost want to call it a new agey type of thing and it sounds like which that sounds dismissive, but that kind of hippie live and let live, love your neighbor attitude, it's like it's something that we remember this from the 90s. It was the zeitgeist there for a hot minute there. It was fuck corporate America, and it was love your fucking neighbor. Damn it. And that just kind of like died with social media. And we're like, it's kind of weird looking back at it, because there was just this moment in the mid 2000s where that just died on the vine. And we just went right back to fucking hating everybody that looks at anything different than us at all.
Yeah. 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 I wouldn't call it anything. For me personally, we don't even have it's, new age or whatever, or woke, or, I don't consider myself to be any of that. I don't identify with I don't identify with a political party. I don't identify with a race. You might call me white, but I don't identify as being white at all. I identify as life. I identify as human, if anything, but essentially identify as life. And, so it's not, I think you could label people if you want to create separation, or you could just say this is a human being that thinks in a different way, that thinks in a unique way. And I might learn something if I, by exploring some things and thinking about things in different ways. That's really the only way that we can continue to learn. And so that's what I've been trying to do, is teach myself more unique, being open to new ideas and new ways of thinking and doing things and learning. So yeah, I don't label myself. I try as a daily practice. I don't label, and so I can never be identified as you know, I don't take offense when people, you know, make fun of white people or make fun of Americans or make fun of Christians or make fun of whatever. And I don't label other people as that. I view people as human beings. And so when we're doing demographics conversations, you know, in our business, and it's like, you've got Hispanic population, and it's like, these are people. Like, what brands are they buying? Like, that's all I care about. You know, it's like, we don't need to slice them up into these little groups, these imaginary man-made groups. Let's just, you know, these are people. Let's figure out what they want. And you know, they're buying. So anyways, it's, that's kind of how I try to remain on a daily practice, accepting and you know, non-resistant to life. And so when you invited me on your podcast, of course, immediately got to say yes to life. And I really appreciate this invitation. Try to remain not judgmental. So no right or wrong, just there's percentage chances of things being the truth, and staying open to possibilities. Maybe we do have everything figured out, and maybe this is the one time in human history that we have everything right. You know, I think that's a low percentage, but I'm open to it. You know, I'm open to that. It's possible, but it's a percentage chance. And then again, non-labeling, those are kind of the things that I try to do on a daily basis. But I don't want to bore your audience to death or sound like I'm preaching, because I'm not. It's just become a part of sort of my daily operation.
Yeah, you're fine, man. Don't. I'm sure that the people that are watching the podcast, I think that the people that know that they're coming to a live stream, that we're not just going to sit here and talk about ancient history the whole time, that we're going to kind of wind all over the place. And in all honesty, when you're expressing like your personal beliefs like that, there's nothing. I don't think that's preachy to do so. It would be one thing if you were saying, well, Dan, I think that you need to, or I think that all these other people, but when you're talking about yourself and like, I wanted to do this with my company and this is how I look at things. I mean, it's one thing like the how drastically that whole thing changed with, like you were saying, not seeing race kind of thing. Like that was, a lot of people would call that racist nowadays, but like when we grew up, that was quite the opposite. I mean, I remember was In Vogue and their Free Your Mind song, and that was "Be colorblind, don't be so shallow" was like one of the main lines in the chorus, right? And this was the anti-racist anthem of like 1990 or some shit. So it's the attitude about this stuff has changed drastically over the years, but what hasn't changed is viewing people as people is still just a simple path to bypassing all of that bullshit. As long as you can look at it and be like, okay, I need to make sure that I treat this person as another fucking human being. You shouldn't have too much trouble, as long as you're capable of looking at your own biases, because it's a sad reality that every one of us is going to have that ingrained in us. And for example, my grandpa, my great grandpa, they were Midwestern Southerners that grew up in a very very racist by modern standards.
Okay.
They're very racist
I didn't have any racism in my family. Like,
oh fuck.
I'm so fortunate to not have that bullshit. But I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, you're fine. No, you're fine. Yeah, it's so like it was hard to reconcile. Like for a long time, I was like, how do I like? My grandpa was a good man. I mean, he raised 5, but he was also, the words that came out of his mouth were just fuck. And he's gone now, and I've got his coffee cup, and I drink from that almost every day, and it's it's General Lee and General Stonewall Jackson talking, a big old Confederate flag on it, and I drink out of that cup so I can look at it and remember every day that this good man had some fucked beliefs. It's really easy to be good and still have something rotten in your core. So it's when I go to talk to somebody who's not white, I know that it's not that I want to be racist or that I was taught to be racist. It's just I grew up in an environment that was that way. So if I'm not careful, it's very easy to slip into looking at people. And everybody has this in some regards. It's not everybody. Women do it to men do it to women, workers do it to rich people do it to workers. College professors do it to the janitor, blah, blah, blah. There's always some place, some lens that you look down at others through. And I guess sadly or fortunately enough for me, mine hit me so hard in the face and so early in life that now it's not so. I don't have much trouble finding it or putting my finger on it. It's a very, very blatant part of my life, sadly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I guess I feel like, and I totally hear and appreciate everything that you're saying, and agree. I guess I feel like with a practice of non-labeling, non-judgment, and non-belief, you can overcome all of that. you can overcome any of that conditioning that you have in your past about whatever that thing is that you're identified with. You know, whether it's if you're identified with a race, or if you're identified with a nation, or if you're identified as an academic, or if you're identified as a Florida State Seminoles fan, or a Cowboys fan, or a, you know, whatever it is that causes you to create that separation, that identification of me versus the other. If you're practicing those things, it can absolutely eliminate that. And I really feel like it's almost becoming necessary, that we begin to think at least explore things in those terms, because weapons are getting very, very powerful, and these old men in these rooms talking to each other, making decisions about, you know, who's going to go to war with who next, who's going to bomb who. I mean, that's like what's happening now. I mean, we're at the place where it's very dangerous world to live in, and it's because of that separation, because of the things that our ego attaches to, that false self, that sense of I that I get from being tied to this group, as, you know, in that example, being white, you know, or whatever Hitler's example was, or whatever Stalin's example was, or whatever. It's all just identification with a specific group that creates separation, and it creates hatred. And if we can practice letting go of our conditioning and our identification, then we can begin to bring some peace into the world. And so, you know, I really feel like that's really the only way for our civilization to continue, is to, if we can start to, honestly, I think that beliefs are the great comedy of our time. I think that if we can make it to another 200 years, I think that we'll look back upon beliefs and be like, holy shit, we were mistaking beliefs for truth for like thousands of years, thousands and thousands of years. And look at what that caused. And look at what, you know, all these people got massacred because they wore glasses, you know, in the 20th century. Like all these people, 200 million people in the 20th century alone murdered, destroyed because of beliefs, because they were wrong and I was right. And whoever the murderer, you know, genocide person was. And I feel like beliefs, just the absolute, and that part's not funny, but they're the comedy of our time. It's the great comedy of our time. And as soon as we can start to really look inward and think about what are my beliefs, and this is something that, again, personally, that I feel, I don't push this onto people. I'm just expressing a perspective here. I want people to recognize that I don't think this is right or wrong. My perspective, it's just a perspective. This isn't something that I push on people, and I encourage people to, you know, think for themselves, make their own decisions. And, you know, we read these books and as a company, and I don't care if people are disagreeing with me. You know, I mean, that's half the fun, is to have the conversation about, you know, this is my perspective. Well, that's great, man. I respect that, and that's cool as hell. So I just want to, I don't think, you know, I just want to point out that I'm not, you know, attempting to preach or assume that I have all the answers here, but peace is becoming very much more important every day as we get more unconscious as a species, and as our weapons get stronger and stronger, and we get more divided, and more people have these powerful weapons and means for mass destruction. So at some point we're going to either be forced to wake up, or we can choose to wake up prior to that happening. And I don't think that has anything to do with woke or any of that shit. You know, I just think
No.
it's just like we gotta, like, at some point, like, realize that we're all humans here, and you know, what type of a place do we want to leave for our grandkids, you know? So
Yeah,
anyways.
it's no, I've said it. I have a little bit more of a cynical outlook than you on this sort of thing, but I agree that like the path forward is absolutely has to be like unification. I've said it a number of times in my life that like the best part of Starship Troopers is when that rock hit the Earth, because when that's when everything would, if we had something like that happen, well, you know, we would be done shooting each other and arguing over whose God's the strongest and what ideology is the best, and it would just be like, okay, well, let's not get wiped out. Um, but it almost, in my mind, it almost would take something like that, like so, and it would have to be the kind of esoteric threat that's not or non-esoteric threat. It couldn't be some intangible. It has to be something they could point at and fucking hate. And then I think we could get everybody on the same sheet of music for a second. And that's sadly because I don't see many people trying to do better. I see, frustratingly, I see things sliding the other way. I would like to see more people thinking like you would. Sadly, it just seems like things are getting worse. And that might just be because I'm getting old. I'm often reminded of the quotes of like Socrates and stuff when he got old, and he'd say shit about how the world was going to end and the youth today are all fucked up. And I'm getting old, so I might be seeing things that way some too, but things definitely do seem not less moral and stuff. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about just like more dangerous and less humane.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's right. I mean, I think when, more people today are being raised not outside, but behind computer screens or behind iPhone screens or and again, like we said, the weapons are getting stronger and stronger. And so, yeah, it's becoming a bit more challenging via technology and advancements in technology. But ultimately, I feel like knowledge or just understanding can wipe that away prior to going through some kind of a devastating event. I think that just understanding the nature of reality can help, can allow us to take that next step evolutionary as a species, like a spiritual evolution, not a physical evolution, but that next step. I think that knowledge can do that, and understanding of the world that's around us. So I'm optimistic that we can, one day way after I'm gone, that we can make progress and start to move things in the other direction. Because I think you're right, it's not going in a sustainable direction right now.
No, sadly, it's not. It's there's to sound a little bit hippie about it, there's gonna at some point like we're gonna have to like figure out how to do things a little bit more sustainably. I don't just mean just the environment. I just mean in general, like
Right.
a very simple example of just how insane our models are is you take Wall Street, and a company on there is supposed to grow X percentage. They need to grow at least 5% every quarter, or fucking, I may as well just have my money in a bank account, right? So, well, now what happens when you're Walmart? Well, how the fuck are you supposed to grow 10% every quarter? That ain't even feasible. But they got to figure out a way to try. So you end up with some really shitty stuff happening at the end of when they get to that. There's no places left to build a store, so the only place left is to tighten the belt, and they got to do that every quarter. It's like that's so unsustainable, but that's just the way the fucking market is. So a lot of these kinds of things, we do need to figure out a better method. But like I say, it sounds a little bit on the hippie side of things, because figuring out a better method, we can all hammer out all these great ideas, but we've already seen how some of these pan out when people try to implement them. So
hippies were onto it. Hippies had a lot of great ideas, man, and they changed the culture back then. And it was very, very, male dominant, very strict, very authoritarian, very closed-minded, very, no empowerment, just do as I say, not as I do, kind of a mentality. And hippies came along and turned that whole thing upside down. I mean, they absolutely, that movement was very, very powerful for just freedom. So you got to push some stuff forward sometimes to balance out and figure out where you're going. So
well, the hippies saw the moon landing, and we were talking about a little bit when we were on when I was on your podcast about the hollow moon thing. That was something that I still haven't researched much, but it was so interesting, because you're talking about it like ringing and shit when they but goddamn, that's just so wild. That's just so weird.
Crazy. Yeah. I don't know, man. I mean, that was supposedly one of the early Apollo missions where they dropped whatever out of their and it hit the moon and just rang like a bell for hours. And it's like, yeah, that's strange. I mean, now we can go back and look at that and make up reasons and excuses why that happened, but it's completely unexpected. I mean, nobody was expecting that. Yeah, the moon's weird. The moon's got a lot of weird things to it, and I'm gonna continue to explore that with different people on the podcast for sure.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see how this unravels over the next few decades, because the tech level is getting to the point where it's going to start getting hard to hide these things.
Yep.
Yes. It's getting hard to hide these kinds of things from the public. I mean, we're at the point now where we've all seen drone footage of shot up from rockets, up into space, where they've put a GoPro on the damn thing and launched the rocket into space. It's just some guy in his backyard spend a few $1,000. We ain't far from them not being able to hide what's going on over there anymore. And We'll see. I don't know how much is hidden and how much is not. It's one of those things where it's like it's wide open for conspiratorial stuff because they fucking hey, like you go look, right? So
yeah, right. Yeah, a lot of mysteries out there, man. A lot of mysteries, a lot of stuff to talk about for sure. A lot of cool stuff. I'm not the expert on, on a lot of it, but I'm learning a lot from my guests and exploring a lot of really crazy cool topics. You being one of the recent ones. I really enjoyed our episode, and if people haven't checked it out, I'm sure people have if they're watching this. But that was a lot of fun. We covered a lot of cool topics.
we absolutely did. And yeah, if you haven't, I'll make sure there's a link down below here for that one as well. And make sure and go subscribe to Matt Beall's channel if you have not done so already. He's got a lot of different people on there. He's had Luke Caverns on there. He's had Christopher Dunn on there. He's had Ben Van Kerkwick on there. He's had Randall Carlson on there. Just tons of people. Who was the guy that was premiering today? I forget. I was trying to catch it, but I was trying to get rid of this too.
Yeah, Stefan Burns. He's a geophysicist, and he's got a channel that is it just passed 100,000 subs. He's one of the more intelligent people that I've ever talked to in my entire life. I mean, he's got a crazy, wide open mind on his head. He knows how things work. He's very, very intelligent and just a straightforward, just a down to earth kind of a guy. I learned a lot from talking to him. So the first half, I feel like it's a 4-hour podcast though. Second half we get into some really cool stuff. He had a UFO experience where he drove under this cube that had this light emanating from it. Kind of reminded me of the Ryan Graves kind of sightings that they had off the East Coast. But we talked about some spirituality stuff, collective consciousness on the second half, and a couple of paranormal things. I showed a picture of what I think is an apparition potentially that I caught with a camera towards the end of the episode that I think is pretty cool, and that's another topic that I haven't really gotten into, the whole paranormal kind of thing, but I think that there's a lot there to explore. I've had various experiences in my life that are completely unexplainable, and so that's something else that I'm kind of interested in. And to be interested in paranormal and UFO and ancient civ is kind of, people are, I probably lost my credibility, but I don't care. I think they're all super interesting, and there's something to each of those things that we can learn from. I don't think energy can be destroyed, and so and so many people have had experiences that I think that's one that's very interesting to me, and I'm going to talk about it more as the show goes on.
No, that's awesome. I'll definitely have to check that out. I didn't talk paranormal stuff with you at all. It's something that, I'm pretty skeptical of a lot of stuff, but I love the mysteries. And one of the things that I love about them is when you dig into them, and a lot of times there is, you hit a brick wall. There is like some of these paranormal stories, a lot of the classic stories and stuff as time's gone on, it's gotten a little bit more debunked and stuff, but some of them hold up pretty good. And it's just interesting. It's the kind of thing where, like, I had an experience once that really, like, it's kind of what made a skeptic of me, I guess you could say. When I was about 10, 11 years old, we just seen Back to the Future in the theater, so I must have been around 10. And we lived in an old house, and the glass was wavy in the bathroom. I took a shower. I got out of the shower, and I looked out the window, and I saw a guy in one of those yellow hazmat suits that the terrorists and stuff were running around in on the movie when they killed the Doc and Marty in the parking lot. Some guy in one of those yellow hazmat suits, and his face is up against the window. I can see his eyes. It's like there's a human there, and I'm like shitting my pants, right? And then I move a little bit to the side, and it's just the glass and the light and the fog, and it's just my mind conjured up the human that wasn't there. And that experience of just basic pareidolia, but that really made it where I look at a lot of these things, because let's put it this way: had I turned and ran out of that room, you'd probably never convince me I didn't see a person. But I didn't turn around out of the room. So there's a lot. I don't think that. So I don't discount those kinds of things, but I've always been really skeptical of those kinds of things and love digging into them. Like, I used to watch that Ghost Hunter show all the time, and I used to sit there, that's bullshit, but I'd still love the show.
Yeah, it's pretty entertaining. I watched that for probably 10 years after I saw a full body apparition. That show I got into trying to find some answers. But yeah, I mean, it's kind of like seeing a UFO, I guess, and then realizing, oh, that one wasn't a UFO. I mean, that doesn't mean that there's not 50 million other people that have seen one that you know, and 2 million actually were, you know. I mean, it's
Yeah.
not, we obviously can't dismiss any of the entire topics. I mean, if Atlantis wasn't, you know, if Graham Hancock's wrong, it doesn't mean that, you know, about one of his theories, it doesn't mean that the whole thing's, you know, complete BS, that there's still stuff that we can learn from it. So,
No, I
uh,
completely
yeah.
agree. It's funny how personal experience does that, where
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
kind of a human trait that we and it's one of the things that's really funny if you'll notice this when you talk to people. People try to look for these one size fits all, like generic rules that they can just apply to things and just like walk away from it without further thought. And when people have a personal experience like that, it's very easy for one person to say, "I've seen ghosts, ghosts exist," or I know that this was pareidolia, ghosts don't exist," and then just walk away with like that is the rule that they run through with life. When in reality, it's, you know, everybody's experience is vastly. I mean, there when you start getting into the philosophical end of this shit stuff. I mean, there's so many, no clue what's going on in somebody else's head and all that stuff. There's so many different little thought tools that they've had over the years, thought experiments, just to show that, you know, we are Plato's cave. Basically, we're all stuck. And for those of you who don't know what Plato's cave is, it's an allegorical tool that a couple of guys are locked in a cave and they can't see anything. All they can make out is shadows and light and smells and sound. And so they end up conjuring all kinds of things that aren't real with their imaginations and have a fucked view of reality because they're trapped.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And
Yep.
anyway,
Yep. Yep.
I think it's probably the least the least professional explanation of Plato's cave that's ever happened, including the most F bombs.
Yeah, it's perfect. It's perfect. Love it. Love it. Yeah, that's beliefs for me, is creating a false reality. Like, and it's like, it's so interesting that as opposed to just being open, and it's just so interesting that there's 8 billion people on this planet, each with beliefs that are slightly different from the next person. And so what we have is we have 8 billion different realities that are walking around on the planet. And, you know, as opposed to just saying that there's percentage chances of possibilities of these things being true, we take it to the belief level. We take a belief to 100% and we take it to a reality. And so that's very dangerous. And you know, it's why we war. It's why we fight. We're defending a belief, because the truth needs no defense, right? I mean, the truth, if we can all agree that light travels faster than sound, we don't need to fight about that. We don't need to cause, you know, but when we're creating our own separate, unique reality and then defending that reality, it gets very dangerous. So yeah, that's again, I think the great comedy of our time is beliefs, and the fact that we are all just separate. We've just separated each other from one another due to various things like identification and belief. So, but yeah, it's an interesting world, and I learn something new every day, and I grow every day. But I appreciate the you know, the being here in this moment with you and being able to share my current perspective with you. It's really cool. I really appreciate the offer, and yeah, I'm still open to answer anything you want to answer. I got
Yeah.
plenty of.
Well, I mean, I really appreciate you coming on, Matt. I just was, our conversation went so well that I really felt like I just wanted to sit there and chat with you for a lot longer, and then life just didn't allow that. Had to go get on a plane, but and then wait for 2 hours, which was a bunch of crap. Could have sat and talked to you for another couple hours, but oh well, that's life, right? That's airlines. But yeah, when it comes to like, I guess let me ask this: what would you work on percentages when you start? You have a lot of those vases, and you have a pretty realistic outlook on it. You don't pick them up and say, "Look how perfectly precise this is." You point out, "Well, this is a little fucked here, but otherwise it's really nice, but it's a little fucked there too." Which was one of the things that, like, when we were first talking about, I was like taken aback because I kind of expected you to be like, "Well, just look at how perfect this is," and it's like, "Well, yeah, it's close, but look."
Mhm.
So what percentage do you attribute to like this being made with like I guess to make it distinct, a power to technology, something with where it was not human driven? Like, what percentage would you ascribe to that with the vases? Sorry if that put you on the spot there.
No, not at all. No. I appreciate the challenging questions, and that's not even the challenging questions. No, I'm here to answer them all. But I don't. You know, I think that with any of these artifacts, if you had a sophisticated enough tool that was hand powered, that you could have created any of them. I don't think that you need plasma or electricity to power a sturdy enough, sophisticated enough lathe to be able to turn these things and make perfect circles, or almost, essentially perfect circles, or to hollow out the middle, to core the middle, or to hollow out the inside walls. I don't think that you need, some super advanced technology for that to occur. I'm not closing down the possibility that that's what happened. But when I look at things like this, even the one that has a zero point 0.4 micron variation between the lip diameter on the X and Y axis, 0.4 microns. I mean, you're talking about less than a half of 1/1000th of a millimeter. I mean, this is way microscopic, like smaller than bacteria. Maybe that was just, random. The other couple of measurements on that specific artifact are not at that micron level. They're more like, I forget, but maybe, like a thousandth of an inch, or something like that on the neck. And you can't measure the width on that one. You can only measure the neck, the lip, and the mouth opening. But again, there's going to be damage. Like, there's going to be this little micro damage on the mouth opening, on the neck. There's going to be micro damage even on the lip. But it seems like on the lip, for this specific 0.4 micron deviation, we got lucky. We got a spot where, hey, there's no damage right here. There's no micro damage potentially. So that could be one explanation for why, or they just got lucky making it. I don't know. It could very easily could have happened. But I don't think, I'm babbling, but I don't think you have to invoke aliens or power tools to explain these things. I mean, we can do it, and we can have fun with that. And I think that as we get the SEM and we look at these things under an electron, like a electron microscope, we're going to learn more about what tools were really involved. Like how did they really do this? And so I think, like, closing off to that possibility right now at this point in the game, it's like, why would we do that? Why would we, I think, like, on the one side you got people like Ben that are exploring this possibility. On the other side you got people that are saying, no, that's not possible. Why would you say no, that's not possible? Do we really know? We don't know yet. We haven't examined them yet. So all you're doing is you're just saying I'm right, they're wrong, and you're just setting yourself up to be, either proven right, which is okay, fine, who cares, or proven wrong, which is like, why would you want that? So no, I think that they could all be made with tools, not in the archaeological record necessarily. Like, I think you're not going to get these things by pounding on them with a chisel. You're not going to get these things with, like, the precision ones. I think that there's a higher likelihood that they're modern fakes than that they were made with chisels, and that they were able to get the roundness to that level of accuracy and precision. And so I don't think they were modern. I think that's also a very low percentage, but I think that you have to turn these. You have to turn these, but that doesn't mean that it was electricity that was required to turn them, or some super powered machine.
Okay. So that's the impression, to be honest with you, that I got when we talked before. But I didn't press you on it, and I've seen people yelling at you on Twitter here and there and telling you that you're making sure to let you know what you believe. So I figured I would just ask you instead of telling you.
Yeah, so, appreciate it.
No problem.
You spoke for me nicely the other day on X, so I appreciate that. Yeah, I mean, look, I'm open to every one of those possibilities. Like, every one of them has a % chance of being true, and we're not going to know until we explore them.
Yeah. The chat's hounding us about hallucinogens. I don't have a problem talking about that, but I'm not a CEO of a company. So if you don't want to dip your toes into that conversation, we're fine.
Was it the mushrooms behind me, or what was the?
They're asking the big ones if we've ever tried DMT, which I've never tried DMT, but I have tried mushrooms and LSD. The 90s were a hell of a time, guys. But
I've not tried DMT.
I'm sorry.
I'll say that I've not tried DMT.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, all right. Yeah, I had not tried it either. It looked the ego death in like with hallucinogens, when you like just kind of feel like you're not there anymore. That's a pretty gnarly experience. And I didn't really have any bad trips with it, but I also knew that I always felt like there was a tiny little bit of a tether to reality. And I always heard the DMT didn't leave you that, and I was like, yeah, I'm cool.
Yeah,
I need a little. No, Rocky, I have not tried DMT.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Gotcha.
Maybe in 10 years when my kid's old enough. All right, guys. I
Yeah,
got a 16-year-old. The last thing I need is him to walk in the room and watch dad staring off the fucking space elves.
right, right. Yeah, yeah, you might want to be outside by yourself for that. No, I'm not judging these things. I don't think that they're bad. I don't think that they're wrong. I don't think that I think that things can be used medicinally, or things can be used as drugs to party with. And if you're combining mushrooms with alcohol, that's I mean, it's not, nobody's like judging you. I'm not saying that's bad, but there is a medicinal effect that can happen. There is the I mean, mushrooms are proving to cure mental illness. Like if you're not using it to party with, and you're actually using it to go inward and to make progress, and to observe the ego, to begin to let go, it can be a very, very powerful tool for that. And that's scientifically proven. Like, that's not me talking. Like it cures addiction. Mushrooms, LSD, can cure addiction if used properly as a medicine. They can cure mental
PTSD.
illness, depression, PTSD, 100%. Absolutely. Like any really like mental thing that you have going on, with the proper work, and with, like, I want to preface this, like, there's a difference between doing drugs, and there's a difference between like using a medicine to help you out. And these are like one of the only things that's showing promise in terms of like what we're being prescribed from the medical community. Those are fucking drugs, man. Like, those are like, people are like giving us drugs, and they're not helping. Like, they're not helping with depression. They're not helping, but we're just getting hooked on them. And it's just like, you talk about making a profit, and companies out there to like keep people hooked on drugs. That's a lot of the medical industry right now, is just keeping people hooked on these drugs. And there's cures now, and it's being studied in a very scientific way, and the results are overwhelming. You can cure alcoholism, you can cure all types of addiction. And so, I think that more studies need to be done. And I don't think that it's necessarily right for everyone right now, or at any given point in their time, in your life. But they show a lot of promise. I have nothing against psychedelics whatsoever. I think that they can very much transform the human experience for people in a lot of ways, and really help people to kind of let go of trauma, and to let go of resentment and negativity in the past, and old conditioned mind patterns. Yeah, psychedelics are they can be very helpful for people as a medicine.
Yeah, it's I would agree with you there. There was a very clear, I mean, I remember in the 90s when it was all the hippie barter fair days up here in Washington. Barter fairs were very common, and that was just a kind of out in the sticks and on some farmer's land, and people would that lasted for about 5 years. And the cops, one year, they just searched all the cars leaving the place, and that was the end of that. But before that, the hallucinogens up here were really, really easy to find there for 5-10 years. And you'd see it with the people that didn't have. I always had a respect for it. Before I'd ever had any opportunity to have it in my hands, I had read Carlos Castaneda, had read Tao Te Ching, and had read a lot of these kinds of things, where I had kind of a guideline in my head of what to expect, and of what I want, what I would think I was going to come out of it. And that's a big part of it, honestly. Like, the guys that were going into it and they're just like going to party, those are the guys that had bad trips. Not all of them, but a lot of them would have bad trips. And
It's just not helpful. It's just not helpful. Like, it's just, whatever. I mean, if you're partying, people party all the time. Like, who's to judge? Like, I mean, alcohol is causes more trauma, and causes more violence, and more car crashes, and more deaths. Like, we're not judging that. Like, that's totally legal. Marijuana is becoming illegal. Marijuana, it does offer the ability to look inward if it's used, sporadically. If it's used all the time, you're just shutting off the blood flow to your prefrontal cortex, and that's scientific. scientifically proven through brain scans. I mean, it's people say there's no harm in marijuana, but if you're a heavy pot smoker and you get your brain scan, you're going to see that there's a strong lack of activity happening throughout your entire brain, and that's what people don't notice. They think it's harmless, and especially this freaking medical bullshit that's out there on the it's not like it's grown in dirt. Like they're like out in the woods. If they're injecting this with with whatever like chemicals and that they want to grow it with, it's not like, this isn't like organic, all natural stuff. So yeah, I mean, none of it's good or bad. Nothing is good or bad until you judge it as good or bad. I don't judge these things, but I do know that scientifically there is proven scientifically to be huge benefits and upside with psilocybin, and that it can really, really help people. So I think that research is ongoing, and it should be ongoing. It's what's the government so afraid of, that people that we can't be researching this, that it would be shut down? What do they not want people to realize about the ridiculousness of the system that we're living in, or whatever, aha moment you might have. So yeah, I'm open to that. Yeah.
The way that hallucinogens are considered like as bad as drugs, like cocaine and stuff, and meth and heroin, and these are the drugs that heroin's the old drug that would get somebody robbing from you. Before you had a car, they would be robbing from your horse and buggy. But heroin's been that way since its inception, pretty much. People, as soon as it got a little bit expensive, people have been having trouble getting enough. And cocaine and all the uppers, I mean, it's one thing. I have a lot of, being a long hair, and I have a lot of people that try, to assume that I'm just like legalize all the shit in the world. But like, those are the ones that go look up any of your fucking serial rapists and stuff, and look and see what drugs they were on. Huge percentage, 60-70% of your serial killers and stuff were strung out on uppers. For whatever reason, it did that to them. So it is, these things, I don't like the partying aspect of it. I almost feel like there's part of it needs to be taken more responsibly than I think a lot of people like even consider. Like they like, drinking and driving is one thing we always talk about, but like, you don't think not nobody, but most people don't think, well, if I go hang out with my friends and we go out to the club and I snort a few lines of coke and then go party and stuff, that I'm going to end up sexually assaulting someone. But the shit happens all the fucking time. And that's where, well, it makes it harder for them to legalize things, in my opinion, like hallucinogens, because unless you've got your fingers dipped into those pies, you really don't understand the difference of anything. It's just drugs, right? I got a friend of mine who's a 70-some-odd-year-old retired cop, and anytime we have this, it's just drugs. Fucking pot, coke, heroin, all drugs. The only one that's not is beer, because it's legal. Again, back to that personal experiences and those beliefs being facts, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, it can be used as medicine, and the difference, I think a lot of the difference is that the others that you named, you get withdrawals from those, and you get addicted to those, and the withdrawal and the addiction is kind of intertwined. It's one and the same. There's not a withdrawal period for medicinal psilocybin. That's not like, you don't have that downer, you don't crave it, apparently, according to the science. And I'm not just speaking off the dome here. According to the science, it's not like you don't have that withdrawal, you don't have that craving, and it can help you get off of the other freaking like addictive shit. I've never done coke. I've never done LSD, although I guess LSD is maybe kind of similar to shrooms. But no, I mean, alcohol for me was a big part of my life since I was probably 18 years old. Wine was kind of glorified in my family. My dad was a big wine collector and connoisseur, and so I came up in college and got into alcohol, and that was a 20 year thing for me. And it's just, I was able to completely drop that. I haven't had alcohol in like 3 years or something like that, and I'm not going to say, why, or if any specific medicine was a part of my just completely ability to let go of that addiction that I had. But I have no desire to drink. Like, I see how toxic that is for me, for my family, for other people and around me, and I see that it's damaging. It was damaging my brain, and it wasn't what I wanted to be and who I wanted to do. So it was the easiest thing in the world to drop, but I couldn't do it for 20 years. Is I would have ups and downs, and I'm only going to have some wine on the weekends or only on Saturday, and then I would have it go back to 3 days a week if we had a work dinner, whatever, for whatever. It just, I had no but it's been nice to be completely clean and sober from really all substances in my life for the last number of years, and just feeling really good. And I think that I know a lot of people struggle with addiction. A lot of people, but it's just, you can break free of that, and a lot of that really is knowing that I am not my mind. So when my mind tells me it's time to go get a glass of wine, I don't have to listen to that. And if I can create that initial separation of the recognition that I am not my mind, that's the first step to ending addiction. It really and truly is. If you know that you are not your mind, you're not the voice in the head that says what it says through its conditioned patterns of, okay, it's Friday night, it's time for a drink. If you can just listen to that, even if you go get a drink, that's okay. But guess what? Next Friday, you might not do it if you can create that separation between your true self and your mind. And it's very, very powerful without medicine. You can, that's just a realization that you can have that can really help with if you have an addictive personality. And for a number of years, I had a very, I would say, all or nothing type of personality. I've always, like, if I'm going to buy a vase, I'm going to buy a freaking vase. What I'm saying? I'm all in on this topic. So, it can have its good things, and it can lead to good things and bad things. But there's nothing good about being the best drinker in the world. That's not going to get you anywhere.
No, no,
Yeah,
it won't get you it won't get you much except for into hospitals. But
right. Yeah, pretty much.
yeah, my experiences were different. I did snort cocaine back in the day. These are all things like the '90s, man. But after I got divorced, um, stick my nose into a lot of different things. But the hallucinogens were always like off on their own little thing. Those were never the party drugs. The other ones, like there is no seeing God from snorting a line of coke. All that does is give you like the ability to have more beer in you and stay up longer. That's all there is to it. But
Right, right. Adderall.
mushrooms are a lot different. Yeah, the same thing exactly. Just any of those speed pills or any of that speed stuff.
Yep.
But yeah, back in the day, I mean, I'm almost 50 now, so like I have to take blood pressure medication. If I was to start doing a bunch of coke, I'd probably be dead by the end of the week. So,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
when it comes to medication, like they prescribed it, like I've got arthritis in my knee, and the prescriptions they give me was like ibuprofen that I already had, Tylenol that I already had, and then it's hydrocodones and steroids. And it's like, well, fuck. I mean,
Right.
I'm either like thick in the skull or my blood pressure is through the roof again. It's like, this is just, they don't give you anything good for these things, but
Nope.
like you say,
Yeah.
what do you do though?
What do you do?
I'll
What do you
go.
do? What else is coming in the comments? Any other interesting?
Oh,
That's
no, well, a lot of people are talking about drugs now. The cocaine thing, I pissed a lot of people off with the cocaine thing. Let me point out real quick, guys, is a big difference between chewing on coca leaves and processing the shit and storing it, okay? You don't see the natives that are down there chewing on the coca leaves staying up for 4 days in a row, but I guarantee you, I've seen some bikers stay up for days on end on that cocaine. So
Yep, yep. Yeah, that never made its way into my region for I think luckily, yeah, it just was
yeah,
never part of my surroundings
never in
for.
your world. That's
Yeah, yeah,
fortunate because you probably get the good stuff there in Florida.
probably true. Yeah,
I would imagine. I don't know because it's been
yeah, Miami's not far.
25 years. They prescribed me Norco after a tonsillectomy. Cat plan says Norco is that one of those hydrocodone or opiate type of things? I'm not sure. I don't know the names of all these pills.
I don't know. Yeah, I'm not
If I
familiar.
was if I was a druggie, I would.
Mm.
But yeah, it is kind of funny how that belief thing is so distinct with the war on drugs. I mean, we both watched this change a lot in our lifetimes, where um, like all this stuff when in the 80s and 90s was just like acetaminophen and hydrocodone. Okay, yeah. Yeah, back in the 80s, all this stuff was 70s, 80s, 90s, all this stuff was just completely taboo. And the culture would, like, you know, the rock stars would smoke weed, and it was the cool kid on the movie would smoke weed or something. But then by the late 90s, it was just like almost this just like fuck you guys attitude. And like here in Washington anyway, ever since like maybe 98, 99, you go downtown Spokane on a Friday night and you'll smell marijuana everywhere you go, long before it was legal. They were just like, "We're going to arrest us all. Fuck you." And it's, I mean, Snoop Dogg was a huge part of that. I remember he got arrested multiple times for people throwing weed on stage and him smoking and stuff. He just zero fucks given, fucks given. And that really changed the culture, right? I mean, it was like, what are you going to do? You're going to crucify the man?
Right. Yeah.
Like,
yeah, that's
that David Lee Roth got in trouble for that shit, but they'd always keep that shit under wraps back in the day. Like David Lee Roth got arrested once for closing the flue to his fireplace and putting a quarter pound of weed on the fire, and like the whole house had smoke pouring out the window, so the fire department shows up, and then the cops stay. But that was all under wraps for like a decade. They would talk to. That was all. But Snoop Dogg was like, "Yeah, fuck that noise." Talk about this right now.
Yeah. I mean, the fact that they're like people are in jail for weed, you know, like right now. I mean, you think back to like the way that they like treated it. Like Michael Vick going through an airport, everybody's bringing weed through airports now. Like TSA doesn't even check for it. Like people like weed vape, you know, weed like it's all going through. Nobody even cares. But you think about like there's like I think like 30,000 people in jails right now because of marijuana related offenses in this country, and it's like what are we doing? What is you know what's so yeah, it's a time of it's a very unique time where that's slowly starting to change, and it's interesting. It's interesting to be a part of and to see the science behind the difference between the various, you know, there are hardcore drugs, there are hardcore addictive, you know, drugs, and that do damage to you. And then there's some things that if used properly, they can actually be beneficial and help more so than the shit that we're getting prescribed by doctors today. So yeah, it's an interesting time of change. And I hope, you know, by the time, you know, we get a couple more decades from now, it'll be a different, it'll be, you know, a lot of these things will be a lot less taboo, and we'll understand them more, and we'll be able to use them effectively to help people. That's really the goal.
Yeah, that is. My daughter actually is funny. She's in a neuroscience program. She's a PhD program at WSU, and she works because Washington State was one of the first states to legalize marijuana. What she does is puts these little things in the brains of rats, and they plug them into this like a little coaxial port. They plug it into this wire, and they blow a bunch of weed smoke in there and register what it does to its brains and all these different things that they weren't legally allowed to do for the longest time, and or it was very restricted studies. And now the doors are blown wide open on it. And yeah, a lot of it is there's a lot of they're doing a lot of research in both directions, medicinally, but also like you were talking about the shutting off the blood to the cortex, depression. A lot of these things are also they're looking at too. It's really interesting. Like I talked to her about it on occasion. She's pretty busy, but it's pretty wild stuff. And I'm sure that rats tell their children horror stories about her to get them to go to bed at night. Because my God, the things she has showed me a rat skull plate, and as long as that skull plate was, that freaking adapter was hanging out the top of it. These things got a full half inch hanging out the top of their head, metal chunk. It's like, God damn. But learning.
Right. Yep. Yeah. What else, man? I should probably move on from drugs. I might just be a podcaster the next time we talk. I might not be a CEO anymore. So we should probably.
Oh shit! Sorry, I'm trying to ruin your career.
No, I'm just playing. It should be fine. What's the worst that could happen?
Did you ever read Carlos Castaneda? We could talk about him some if you were. Did you ever read any of that?
I don't think so. No.
He was an anthropologist that a lot of the guys don't like. He in the 70s, he went to study. He wrote a bunch of books. According to the books, he went to study under a shaman in South America or Central America, I forget. And it was tied to hallucinogens and stuff, but it was about like his spirituality and about this shamanistic path that he followed from the teachers that he had. There was a pretty interesting stuff, some pretty interesting insights into the nature of reality and stuff like that. Like one of the tricks that he had the guy do was stare at this tree and meditate on this tree all day long. And as he's focused on this tree and focused on this tree, he sees this white shimmering light, and this light eventually like fills his whole mind, and he's like has this massive spiritual experience. And then when he's done, the shaman goes like kind of snaps him out of it and shows him that the white thing was started with a piece of cloth that he hung up on that tree. It was all happened in his own psyche, and it was just the buttons were pressed from the outside because he let them be pressed from the outside. Some pretty interesting stuff.
That is, yeah.
And not the kind of thing that should get a CEO in trouble. So
right. Yeah. Yeah, true. Yep. Yeah, it's interesting. The whole history of it's interesting with just like, you know, people worshiping cows. Like the whole, I think Hinduism essentially was created because these cows these mushrooms would grow off the cow dung, you know, and it's like we form a whole religion off of it. So yeah, you can convince people of a lot of things when you cause them to hallucinate and you're telling them stories. And yeah, it's pretty interesting. The whole human history, I think, with them going back to the Egyptians potentially, if that's what you know, certainly the Hindu civilization. I'm thinking of the granite boxes, you know, which are supposedly bull, which is probably a bunch of bull in itself. But yeah, it goes way back into, you know, ancient Greece with Eleusis. Brian Murarescu did some great work on that with Journey to Eleusis, and how that was kind of shut down by the Christians after several thousand years of people journeying there as just a part of their spirituality, their religion. It was, you know, yeah. So it's an interesting history, and it's just interesting how it got so shut down for so long, and now scientifically it's being able to be researched in a way again that can hopefully help people learn. And I think we'll learn something from it. We ought to learn something from it. So
yeah, definitely. It's anything like that hopefully we can learn from. It's interesting to turn back the clock and see like how much like like you get the stoned ape theory from, we talked about it for a second when I was on your podcast, and just like, there's so many different ways that it can be beneficial potentially. The PTSD thing is veterans are like a lot of veterans are swearing by microdosing mushrooms right now as a cure for and that makes sense because, man, these boys seen some shit, man. You know, it's not, they deal with demons that most of us can't even fathom.
For sure.
So, and if it's working for them, it might work for it could help other people's too. So it is great to see that that times are a change in that way. But it is funny. It is funny what you mentioned about the Hindus. Like I always heard, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I heard wrong because I haven't researched it. But I'd always heard that cows were sacred over there because like they were brought over. That they were having like a famine. Cows were brought over, and they were like, they'd feed the people, they'd clothe the people. You could make all the things from their horns. It was this great thing. And then eventually they became revered because of that. And then eventually it just turned full circle. And some holy man's like, why the fuck are we eating these things if they're gods?
Right.
Which we kind of see the same thing in, I forget the guy's name, but in Baghdad back in the day when it was the like center of mathematic learning and stuff. When that stopped, there was a guy who's like one of those religious leaders, and he came in and said basically that like, we're doing such a great job of peering behind the curtain, but why do we need to? Allah made everything. There's no reason to be like trying to figure out how he did shit. Stop all this. And so like in one generation, they rolled back their sciences, their education. It became sacrilege. And it's not all Muslims that way. It's just a historical fact that that's what happened in Baghdad a long time ago. And it's funny because things can go full circle that way. And, you know, from a historical perspective, you stand back and look at it, you look at 1,000 years and you see it, but in each individual generation, it's just their beliefs making their reality, right?
Right. Exactly. Yep. Yeah. What else, man? What else is on your mind?
Well, heck, man. We talked about just about everything. I got to pick up my kid. I got to leave here in about 20 minutes. So we got about 20 minutes left if you're up for that.
I'm good. Yeah.
Yeah, you want to pull up we can talk about some more of those vases. We only looked at a couple of the ones you brought out, didn't we?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Let me grab people like those things for some reason.
Yeah, Ryan, you got the cam. I mean, this one's kind of interesting. Get the phone out of the way. Well, actually, the light's going to help. This one's kind of interesting. just from the standpoint of it does have the two holes at the top.
Oh,
You can
wow.
see that there. So again, the holes seem to be important, but what was it? It's if you go to the overhead cam, you can see inside there. It's hollowed out really nicely. So it's not just the core, but it's also hollowed out really nicely. This is so tricky to do. But you can see that like the walls were actually hollowed out inside this one, in addition to just the coring. So it's just, was this like a something that somebody used as a cane? They put this on a stick, and it was something that they were, or was this, I don't know, but it dates back to that same time period in ancient Egypt. So yeah, it's very
Wow.
smooth. It's diorite, and very, very, very well polished and very smooth, and just kind of different. It does, again, I mean, it's got the rounded bottom. Nothing's going to spin on this table, I don't think, but it's yeah. So that one's kind of cool.
Wow. Yeah. Have you have they checked for like residue of anything inside of any of these that you're aware of?
I have not yet. I mean, a lot of them come with residue. So, but
Yeah.
honestly, like it's the issue is, and let me grab another one. Um, I've got a decision to make with the residue, because like when I get them scanned, you don't want to have residue on them. And I've scanned a bunch of them with residue, and the scan comes back and it's like, okay, it doesn't look like that on the inside. It's not like,
Mm.
and so it's like, it makes it look like it's imprecise, and like it's all these things. And so I've taken the residue out on a handful of them, and I've kept the residue in on a bunch of them. But yeah, it looks like dirt, like old dirt basically. But yeah, it's tough with the light on this one, but you can kind of see this has obviously a gold top to it, and it's on the inside. I kept the residue in here, so that's kind of what you'll see with the residue. What it kind of looks like. A lot of typically it looks just like a bunch of brown dirt on the inside, but you can see the tool marks going all the way down to the bottom. You can see the tool marks on the side. They're pretty well pronounced on this guy. Let's see. Yeah, there we go. So again, it's always that same kind of it's always those same tool marks. They're just in the different artifacts. It's just a question of how worn down are they, or how sharp are they. And so I think that the more worn down they are, the more potentially older, the more they've been handled, the more people have stuck their hands in there and, kind of played around with them. So this one is again ultra precise. It's one of those that's very the dimensions of it are very much symmetric. So that was a cool one.
It's yeah, that one's a gorgeous one too. The gold top. Normally stuff like that would come across as a little gaudy to me, but it matches that vessel so well that it looks good.
Yeah,
It's a good looking piece.
yeah, and a lot of
Um,
them you'll see the handles that are kind of like indented, like they took it off of the turning device for cutting, and then they just like put the handle up against it as the whatever was turning, and you kind of see like, let me show you. Like this guy here, it's like,
damn, yeah.
how was this made? It's again core drilled and then hollowed out from the inside, but yeah, it's tough to see, man. We might need a different light here, Ryan. Um, but yeah, it's like this one was obviously shaped from the outside, so it wasn't. This one wasn't. I have no idea how they made this, to be completely honest with you. But this is a design that's relatively common. I've seen others like this, and it's like a silver dollar kind of a thing with
Wow.
Yeah, it's really, really cool.
Yeah, that would definitely be hard to make.
No doubt, no doubt. Yeah, yeah. No idea how they would have done this if they would have just placed this up against the tool, and just kind of just. I don't know, but it's cool. It's different.
Yeah, very cool.
Yeah. Um, this one I just did the video on, just to kind of show that it's kind of how, and this is not one of the more precise ones, but this one is fluorescent under a black light,
Mm.
and
Yeah, that was gorgeous.
yeah, it's not imprecise. I mean, it's very round. It's obviously made on a lathe, but when you look at the top of it, I don't know how much of this is damaged. On the inside here, It looks a little bit wider maybe on that spot than some of the other spots, and when you go down inside of it, it's just incredible to me that they were able to hollow this out in the first place. Like the Scientists Against Myths guys, they cored the one that they made. They weren't able to hollow the walls. So how do you get whatever the tool was in through that tiny little hole to be able to hollow the walls like all the way out to, I mean, you're talking, it's about a half, maybe a little bit less than a half of an inch thick on there. I'm never going to get my pinky out of here. This thing's
Ryan.
We're good. But
Damn.
But that's pretty cool. That's like,
oh, that is really cool.
Yeah. And it's fluorescent too, which is super unique.
Yeah, I remember seeing that was really interesting too. But that's little things of them like getting up on inside and doing those inside walls. It's the kind of thing that, like you said, they just ignore it. They're like, oh yeah, well we made. Well, no, you kind of made something similar, but
right. Yeah, and this is another one that's it's granodiorite, and it is. It's just very difficult to try to understand how you would have gotten into a hole like this on the top, where you could hollow out all the way. It's hard to show, but I mean, all the way out to here. You're just, I don't know, maybe a half an inch thick, but it goes all the way, like you're going straight in, and then you go all the way out to the side, like in a 90-degree angle. And there's obviously a way to do it. This is one of the ones that David Miyamo used to show an example of a real vase. This was one of his that he didn't know that I had it on order at the time, or else he would have never said that.
Sorry. That tickles me to death. Sorry. Fuck.
It was really funny, but this is a monster. It's a beast. It's absolutely huge and beautiful, and really good work underneath the. Sorry, we switched cams. My bad there. Underneath this lip area, it's not perfect symmetry, and on the inside the walls aren't perfectly hollowed out like you're going to see a wall thickness deviation on this one when you look at the wall thickness report, but so clearly people were somehow doing this with tools that were not, it wasn't the same tools that made this guy. It wasn't the same tools that created this. That's probably going to be way too close, but that guy, it's a more primitive method of manufacture for that one than you're going to see on this one. Which is clearly just incredibly symmetric and perfect wall thickness, and just like spins forever, and it's just absolutely stunning. So, but again, you get the tool marks.
Yep.
So, it's they're interesting. They're all very different. They're all different levels of precision and uniqueness, and I don't know, man. There's a lot of mysteries yet to be unlocked there. I think those are. Oh, here's one more.
I agree with you. A lot of mysteries left unlocked. When they can't figure out how to do certain parts of it, it's like they at least should acknowledge that, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, this one's pretty crazy. This was Ben's favorite and Danny Jones' favorite when I went on that show and talked to Danny. He's a great guy, absolutely fantastic podcast, and a good dude and a good friend. But this one is, this is the one that has the 0.4 micron deviation between this measurement and this measurement, and so, you're like the mouth, the lip are not quite as precise. Obviously, it's the best measurement I've ever seen, and you can't measure the width versus the width because of the handles, are, they get in the way there of the widest part. So there's only a couple places you can compare measurements on this one. But yeah, this is green diorite is what it's called, and you can see all the crystal inclusions in it, and you can see some of the damage on the lip right there across from my thumb. Like right in that area. So, you're not going to get a perfect measurement on the mouth or on just because it does have that little micro damage that you're going to see after 5,000 years. But this one is super interesting, and it's almost like a squished down version of some of the other some of the other artifacts that we see, like this one. It's like they had a handful of different designs and methods that they would go after, and that last one is just kind of like a flattened version of a similar design. So I think there's some work to do here in measuring like the volume on the interior of them, and measuring the obviously a lot of people are talking about frequency. I haven't done a lot of work with frequency yet on these things to try to figure out if there's anything there with resonance or whatever. I know a lot of people are interested in that research, and so eventually we'll get to all of that. But yeah, there's a lot of different there's a lot more work that we can do. I know that the thin-walled vase and the spinner, this one, both have not only that royal finger measurement system ingrained in the dimensions, but they also measure out in Hecate, which is an ancient Egyptian form of measuring volume, Hecates, and 1/16 of a Hecate, I believe, is 300 cc's today. And so this one happens to be exactly 300 cc's. So if you're a skeptic, you're going to say, well, it's modern. And if you think that they were using that ancient system, you're going to say, well, they were using a 1/16 of a Hecate, which was a very common volume back to use for them back then. And this one is that one is 600 cc's, or 1/8 of a Hecate, this larger one, and to the very top. So, and you can see some of the damage on the lip of this one here. Like if you look like right there and right over here, you can see this one has damage here and here, but not here and here. So it's pretty interesting. Like, were they pouring something out on each side of this, and that's what created the damage over the inside of the mouth? I don't know. But it's interesting that you only see and you can feel the damage here and here, but you don't feel it there and there. So that's kind of interesting. Was it some corrosive material that they were using here? But again, if you go right up to this very top part of the inside of the mouth here, that's exactly 300 cc's, or 1/16 of a Hecate. And I forget if it's to the top here or to the top here, but that's exactly 600. And you add another drop, and then this one starts to fill up this round part here, because it's at a slight angle, and then you're over that that measurement. So it's clearly I mean, the volume here and the metrology here was clearly intentional. Whether it was intentional in modern times or intentional in ancient Egyptian times, that's for us to hopefully figure out one day.
That's fair. That's a very even keeled approach about it, which you're certain to make your skeptics upset by not saying things a little bit more.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know.
But no, I agree. I would agree with you that it's like we touched on. I'm of the opinion that most of them are going to be real, because there were better things to fake, more money for less effort. But to assume that all of them would be real would be just as out there, in my opinion. Like the percentage thing. I would say the ones that I handled of yours, it did seem like the one was like distinctly different. You could see
for sure
night and day. So
yep.
Anyway, yeah, it would be interesting to see how things go forward with that. We've had a lot of people in the chat say this has been a really great conversation, which I would have to agree. I always enjoy talking with you, and was pleasantly surprised the first time as to how well it went, and I knew that this would be well. So I'm glad that you chose to come on. So thanks, man. I appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I'm glad you invited me. I appreciate the opportunity. It's cool to be able to get on here and just chat. And no, I enjoyed your company so much when you came down to Florida and chatting with you. You're just a genuine, open, authentic person, and that's what I try to have on the show. Sometimes I'll get a guest, and it's like you don't know what you have until until you start. But I feel like 99% of the people that I've had on the show and hopefully go forward have just been open-minded, just cool people, and certainly you're, you know, up near the top of that list in terms of just genuine, authentic. You're gonna say what you think, and you don't care if people, you know, it's not about agreeing or disagreeing. It's like, this is where I am right now, and I'm open to possibilities. And so that's for me the most that's the most fun part about talking with you specifically, is we're just exploring these topics, you know. And the fact that you are open-minded and you're just cool, down to earth dude. So I think that's obviously why your show's so popular and why you got so many followers, is the way that you handle yourself. So kudos to you, and I really appreciate being here.
Well, thanks, Matt. That conversation with you went really well. When I went to visit you, and just the invite was, like I say, it was the first real cool experience that I had, is doing this whole content creation thing, being flown around and get to stay in a fancy hotel, and get to be on a podcast, and touch all these cool artifacts. And then we had a great conversation, and I can't say thank you enough. It was my pleasure to have you on again. Is there anything besides your 2 YouTube channels that you would want to shout out here? I mean, I'll link your Twitter and stuff down below too, but is there anything besides your social media stuff that you'd want to, like, give a yodel to?
No, I don't think so, man. I appreciate the audience for being interested, and for listening, and for taking the time to be here. And you know, appreciate everybody if you are subscribed, and if you're not, that's cool too. But you know, yeah, I mean, I'm on I obviously got the YouTube channel, and got the X thing, and then, you know, they're putting all the shorts out on Insta and Facebook as well. But it's, you know, it's whatever. It's cool. I'm doing this as, you know, it's fun. If I talk too much about some fringe topics today, maybe I will be begging for subscribers, you know, because it'll be my full-time gig pretty soon. But for now, just if you want to subscribe, and you know, I just
Hope I didn't get you fired.
I don't think so, man. I should be good. My board's pretty cool. So
That's good. That's good.
yeah, all good, all good. But no, it's great being here, man. Great chatting with you as always.
All right, you too, Matt. Well, I think we'll go ahead and call it a stream here then. Everybody, thanks for showing up, and make sure to go click the buttons down below here, and pay Matt's channel a visit if you hadn't below.
Appreciate it, brother.
Thank you.